Chapter 16. Race for First. Thank you everyone. Present mixed voice carries over the stadium. Welcome back to the annual UA Sports Festival. Can I get a YHHH? Spattering of cheers and applause are heard throughout the arena. Tingles, my friend. Tingles. It's me, your host, Present Mike, and beside me is my best friend and brother from another mother, Eraserhead. We have no relation to one another, Izuku coldly states. Now listeners, today is truly special. You had the second years and third years, but this crop is something different. As the various UA classes made their way into the stadium being introduced, fresh from the fight, like a catchy 80s pop song, we need a hero. It's the 1A hero course. Hearing the cracking sound of a whip drew the attention from the audience and attendants. The 18-plus only heroine Midnight strutted out onto the podium, making sure to sway her hips as she went. Now then, my little students, she said with her sultry voice, we get to hear a speech from our player rep. Come on up, as she waggled her finger at Izuku. Wonder Child. As Izuku stepped up to the podium, he fell into his own thoughts, remembering when he was brought into the teacher's lounge. Now young Midoriya, because you performed so well in the entrance exam, you are being chosen to give the opening declaration at the sports festival. All Might said as he and the other teachers looked at the nervous student in front of them. It's a special right. You earned it by being, well, the Titanic hero chuckled. For doing so well in the exams, lessons and all around, Nedzu said as he sipped his tea. You have been chosen to open the games for the first-year students. But I've never given a speech before. What if I mess up? Izuku said nervously. After all, public speaking was one of the most common fears. Just don't do something bullheaded like challenge everyone to a fight, and you should be fine, Izawa said as he graded papers, barely participating in the discussion. Midnight slunk over to him and pulled the boy into her chest. And if you get really nervous, I'll be right there next to you. If you need a little encouragement, she said, whispering the last part. Walking lawsuit, Izawa chastised his colleague. The older woman stuck out her tongue. No fun? Izuku finished his short walk up to the microphone, which gave a small amount of feedback as he leaned in to the device. Clearing his throat, he began talking. Hello, I am Izuku Midoriya, he mumbled, then looked at the assembled crowd. Students, parents, friends, family, hero, and civilian alike. All here to see him, compete. He saw that in the crowd Momo and Itsuka were giving him the thumbs up. He steeled his nerves and spoke again. When I was 4 years old, I learned a harsh truth. Not all men are created equal. Gasps were heard throughout the stadium. We, blessed with extraordinary powers that allow us to do things never before thought of outside the covers of a comic book. As Midoriya scanned the crowd, he saw he had the undivided attention of everyone. But we're still human. What we do with those powers, whether it's to help people, hurt people, or simply make our lives easier. We, as he waved his hand to the students lined up, are UA's first-year students, whether it's in general studies, business, support, or heroics. We all took the first steps to ensure that we use our powers, our minds, our bodies, to make the world a better place. Clearing his throat, he stood tall. But today, none of that matters. Today we stand before you all, as equals, competitors in a great game, to demonstrate what we know and what we have learned, to show not just our parents, friends, loved ones, but Japan and the world, that we are here, and I just have to say, it's showtime. As he flung up his arms, releasing clouds of colored smoke and doves, before bowing and walking down the steps to the raucous cheering of the stadium. Wow, Izawa, do you give them heroic speech classes as well? Present Mike asked his colleague and fellow announcer. The Erasure hero just smirked. No, he's just that cheesy. Well, my friend, it looks like Midnight is ready to start the first trial. Let's listen in. Present Mike finished. Listen up, my fun little cuties, she said as she cracked her whip on the ground. The first trial is, as she gestured to the giant monitor behind her as a digital wheel spun around. The obstacle course, turning to the crowd with a grin. In this event, students will have to get through the various traps, enemies, and distractions we set out for them. Sounds like it wasn't entirely random if they set up for it, Izuku whispered, nudging Momo in the ribs, making her giggle. The rules are simple. You can use your quirk however you want. Just don't leave the track, and make sure you get back here as fast as you can. Midnight said before in a sultry tone, adding, otherwise I'll be so lonely. As various students and viewers blushed at her antics, with a hop, Midnight cheered loudly, so on your marks. Suddenly the students were alert. They were being given very little time to prepare or even strategize. Get set. Eyes shifted to the large doors that were behind them opened. Geo? A stampede of over 200 pairs of feet rushed to the small opening. Shouts of surprise as suddenly most people found their feet frozen to the floor. The first obstacle, Present Mike excitedly laughed. Getting out the door. Izawa in a much more controlled manner. Yes, to test the students in a panic situation, where crowds are trying to all escape, getting in or out of the scene, is one of the first things a hero needs to be able to do. Ooh, educational. Present Mike stuck his tongue out and looked at a camera, holding up a thumb. Izuku, used to working with tight spaces, fluidly moved through the dense group of people like he was dancing, his thoughts falling back to earlier conversations. Midoriya-san. Todoroki approached as the 1A students were in one of the stadium's locker rooms. Oh, hello, Todoroki-san. How can I help you? Izuku smiled at his classmate. I'm better than you, the dual quirk user bluntly stated. I have a better quirk. I have better training. I am going to beat you. Oh, wow. A declaration of war, and to the class pres of all people, Kirishima nudged a growling Bakugo. Todoroki-san, that's, Momo started to say as she tried to intervene and defuse any potential conflict. Izuku's raised palm stalled her. Todoroki-san, I don't presume to know why you wanted to do this now, of all times. But, I accept. To make it clear, Izuku turned to all his classmates. I declare a war on all of you. We may be classmates, friends, something more, but today, we are rivals. And I would be ashamed of myself if I won with anything less than my best, or won against anything less than yours. So cool, Kaminari laughed. Hey, don't get a high on your pedestal there, President. I'm going to be the one standing tall with the number 1 on my medal. No way, Mina rushed over and pulled her friend into a hug. You're going to be looking at my cute face as AI dance all over you. Karo, I think I wouldn't mind placing first, Tsuyu admitted. Now then, Todoroki-san. Izuku turned back to his classmate. You might be better than me, sure, but are you better than everyone? Because that's what today is all about. Izuku looked behind the boy and at the clock. All right, everyone, they're going to start calling for the different classes now. Make sure you're ready. You won't get another shot at this for a year. And just like that, Todoroki-san has given the rest of the competitors the cold shoulder. Or at least cold feet, Present Mike joked. Sure, but let's see who has what it takes to turn this around, Izawa stated as he watched his 1A students find a way around the icy trap. Wow, thanks Midoriya-kun for that suggestion, Mina said as she dug her hands into the walls to pull herself out of the crowd, using her acid to make handholds. No problem. Don't think that'll be enough. Look ahead. Midoriya nodded to his friend. And the first official obstacle, Robot Inferno, Present Mike shouted as the monitor showed Todoroki approaching a veritable army of military-grade robots. Not sure where the principal got these, but they are cool. How will the students get past these villains? A common obstacle during hero work is the nameless grunts, thugs, and mooks that work for villains, Izawa instructed. Most of the time these pose very little threat, but are an excellent way to wear down and slow down a hero's progress. So how will the front runner get past these zero-pointers? As the kaiju-sized robots stomped their way forward. Holy super crap! This is insane. How is this fair? Were the cries of exasperation from many runners as they came up the first wave. Todoroki, barely slowing down, flung his hand in a wide arc, sending a colossal glacier freezing 2 of the massive robots in his path. Students in awe at the amazing power displayed by one of their peers. Present mixed commentary continued. Ooh, I got chills, literally. I can feel the cold from here. And he's tactical about it too, Izawa added. Students attempted to pass through the gap made by the frontrunner, only to have the robots collapse due to being frozen in awkward positions. Ooh, that looks like it hurt. I think a couple of students got caught under that. Some like Bakugo ignored the current obstacle by flying himself over them. Others like Ida dodged and weaved their way through while maintaining speed. Shinso instead was being carried around by a group of students. Sudden sounds of scrapping metal grated on the ears of people as they passed by the machines. "I'm alive!" Kirishima shouted as he dug his way out of the zero-pointer. "He's alive!" Mina cheered as she jumped over his head. The other robot also had the same happen not a second later. "I'm alive!" As Tetsu also burst out of the chest of the down machine. "They're alive!" Midoriya laughed as he watched the faster students, like Pony, Tsuyu, and Shishida, whose mutation quirks gave them a higher physical threshold, pass by him. "Why, you copying me?" Kirishima and Tetsu said to each other, before both taking off down the road at the same pace. At the next obstacle, contestants slowed down. The next obstacle, the tightrope of terror. Present Mike shouted loudly, "So, bestest friend of mine, want to tell the audience what this is all about?" "As long as you never call me that again, sure," Aizawa bantered. This tests how good someone is at crossed perilous terrain. In a collapsed building, not all footing is stable, and the need to move expediently and with grace is key. We aren't all muscleheads who leap around. Ooh, a harsh burn to all those heroes whose names happen to rhyme with small bite. Present Mike laughed. Speaking of small bites, did you know you can head over to the stands just outside to purchase some amazing treats? I myself go crazy over roasted peanuts, the sound hero continued. I just love nuts in my mouth. Aizawa just stared incredulously at his friend. Are you? You know what? I don't care. One shum. Present Mike pushed a large bunch of roasted and salted peanuts to his co-commentator. I'll take a few, Midnight said over her microphone. I love little nuts. Aizawa slammed his head into the table. Oh, we are so getting fined by the MIC for this. Let's just go back to the contestants, shall we? Todoroki having frozen some of the rope to slide on, while others stood by trying to figure out how to use their quirks to pass. Izuku calmly walked up and just kept pace as he moved along the rope as if it wasn't an obstacle for him. Turning his head, he watched as Momo made a long pole to act as a balance for her as she gracefully but slowly crossed the chasm. Seeing as others made an attempt at copying her, but most simply lost their footing after a few steps and fell to their death, which, considering you can see large cushions down in the pit, meant all they got was a comfy place to relax. The most surprising to him was Ida, who used his quirk to shoot himself along the rope, while trying to balance the same as everyone else. Suddenly a loud clang rang out and a giant block fell out of the sky. What the? As a boy with a talking bubble for a head ran past him, Izuku laughed. So that's what his quirk does. That's so cool. Izuku watched as the 1B students didn't skip a beat at coordinating their quirks better. Yui enlarged the rope so that it was much wider, making it easier to run across. Another girl with pink hair used a grappling hook system to swing along the pillars to get to the other side. While those students aren't missing a beat, Present Mike commented, just like my latest vinyl, The Sounds of My Love for You. Get it today at your local AC. As he is cut off by Aizawa strangling him with his scarf. Stop hawking your merch at events like this, his friend glared. I'm the #1 seller of vinyl. Why shouldn't I? Present Mike whimpered. That's because you're the only one still selling vinyl, Aizawa snarled. Midnight chose to jump in on the conversation. Who are we promoting our line of products? Because I got a new one. It has 7 speeds, rotating, pumping, and vibradash. She continued her spiel even as her feed got cut. I need to stop making bets with my coworkers. Aizawa relented that he had a nasty addition to making wagers over people's duties. So anyway, let's get back to the runners. It looks like they just made it to the third and final obstacle. Mike cackled madly. The minefield of mayhem. There's no lesson to be learned here. Just don't step on a landmine. Aizawa quietly said into the microphone. Todoroki, the front runner for the entirety of the race, was cautiously making his way across the field, while others slowly caught up and too began making careful steps to avoid the explosives. Momo making a metal detector to find and pass by them without setting any off. Some like Tokage and Yanagi were using their quirks to float themselves or the bombs away, being careful to avoid triggering them. Izuku paused as he watched. I haven't done anything to stand out. By what should I? His thoughts cut off as someone triggered one of the bombs, leaving a giant cloud of pink smoke behind. I got it. Izuku mentally cheered as he ran and started digging up bombs. After he had a fair amount gathered, He noticed that Todoroki and Bakugo were neck and neck for first, only got one shot at this, as he pulled back his arm and spun around and around, like a discus toss. The bomb sailed far as it passed by the two boys, before Izuku leapt up and slammed his feet into the bombs he had collected. A loud blast alerted everyone to the explosion. Gasps were heard in the crowd. "Aizawa, what are you teaching these kids?" Present Mike shouted. "Wonder Kid, know why?" Midnight cried out. Aizawa sat calmly with a smirk. "Just watch. This kid is something special." As the bomb sailed clear into the doorway and rolled along its edge into the stadium, before landing with a click on its detonator. Suddenly a burst of pink smoke, and when it cleared, Izuku was standing there with his arms out wide. Thank you. Stunned into silence, Midnight paused before announcing, "And in first place is the Wonder Child, Izuku Midoriya." Todoroki and Bakugo stormed into the center of the arena seconds later, other students trailing behind them. "Oi, Deku, what the fuck was that?" "Come on, Kachin, you know it's all about making an entrance." Midoriya laughed as the blonde boy stalked over to him. "Fucking explosions are my thing. Remember that." As Bakugo poked Izuku in the chest, chuckling to himself, Izuku backed around the angry boy and watched other students come in. Seeing Itsuka come in with another couple of students, Izuku snuck over and spun the orange-haired girl around and dipped her into a kiss. Blushing and stammering, Itsuka let out a quiet complaint. "Izuku-in, everyone can see us." "Ooh, I love a captive audience." Izuku chuckled before planting his lips on hers again. Standing her back up, Izuku raised his head. "Now where is Momo-chan?" As he began prowling through the assembled students. When he watched her run in huffing and tired, Izuku came up behind her and picked her off the ground into a princess lift. "Is Milady tired?" The green-haired boy waggled his eyebrows. "Zuku-in, what are you?" Momo started to ask before she was silenced with the boy carrying her connecting his lips with hers. "My parents might be watching." "Ooh, kinky," waggling his eyebrows at the raven-haired young woman in his arms. "You're incorrigible," Momo laughed. "Itsuka, help. He's learning to fight back." "Can't have that." As the orange girl finished her stretches to prevent cramping, she too came over to the couple. "Ahem." Midnight loudly and over-exaggeratingly cleared her throat. "Now as much as I would love to watch this, and I really would, we need to get on with the second event." "So Aizawa, do you teach all your students to woo women?" Present Mike said, trying his damnedest not to laugh. Aizawa sighed. UA's official policy on dating between students is that so long as both parties are in agreement and consenting, no action between faculty is needed, unless said relationship becomes detrimental to the safety or function of the students, faculty, or facility. As such, I legally do not have to care. "Okay, but what about this triangle of love?" Mike snickered. Aizawa turned to face the camera. "I have no opinion one way or another." Mike sticking his tongue out. "Spoil sport. Can't we get some drama? After all, this is showbiz." "No, it's a sports festival," Aizawa corrected. "Not with that kid leading the pack, it ain't." Midnight laughed into her microphone. Up in the stands, a teary-eyed mother was watching her son use his training and talents to make his way with the pack of students through the obstacle course. She turned excitedly to the young woman next to her, in a blue dress with long braided silver-gray hair. "That's my baby." She bounced in her seat. "Yes, young Midoriya has come a long way with his gifts," the mysterious woman said. "He's clearly been dedicated to his practice. I am most happy to see the exchange has worked out for him so well." Inko gasped. "Wait, are you?" "Yes, I am that old lady that your son met all those years ago. My name is Sophie," she said as she extended her hand. Stunned by the appearance of the fabled old lady, who doesn't look a day over 20. You, my son." So many questions piled up in her head, she was unable to ask a single one. "Oh dear, I get it. I look so much younger than how your cute son would have described me. But that's quite all right. I know you must have so many questions for me, but unfortunately I cannot answer but a few." Sophie regally stated, "Well, I could, but I shan't." "How did you give my son a quirk?" Inko asked the foremost question in her head, one she wondered at above all else, as she shook the hand of the mysterious woman. "Magic," Sophie giggled. Inko stared at the woman. Izuku always told me that, but I never. Is it really that strange that your son's life was changed by magic? Sophie shook her head. I swear no matter how much of the world I see, so little of it changes. Shaking her head, I guess not, or that really it doesn't matter, thank you. Thank you so much for what you did for my son. What I as a mother failed to do. Tears welling in her eyes. It's quite all right. Fear is a natural part of life, and I have had my fair spell of them over the years, Sophie responded, placing her hand on the crying mother's lap. It's all about keeping a stiff upper lip and continuing on regardless, however. That makes the fear so much smaller. Izuku has been my only constant in life, after Hisashi left, but now he's growing up into such a wonderful boy. I'm so proud of him. Inko wiped her eyes. Make sure you tell him that then, Sophie told the mother. Inko nodded. I will. I really will. The two women looked out over the crowd when Izuku began his quick trek across the tightrope. But Inko was confused as she watched her son dig up some of the mines with his hands and flung one quite far down the length of the field. She screamed her head off when she thought her son just blew himself up, but her heart skipped a beat when he popped out of the smoke from the thrown mine. Inko shook in her seat from worry and frustration at her son's antics. Sophie was trying and failing to keep from laughing at the situation. You're such a good mother. Sophie wiped a stray tear from her eye. Being concerned about him even when he's in his element. Yes, but can I still be a good mother if I had to beat my son within an inch of his life for pulling a stunt like that? Inko seethed. Sophie shrugged. I dunno. Ask those two. She pointed as her son approached a beautiful orange-haired girl and dipped her into a kiss. Eek, my baby and one of his girls. Inko squealed in her seat. Then she practically fainted as he went over to Momo. Oh, such a good boy. Now if only I could convince him to get more. Mama wants grandbabies. Well, I wouldn't worry too much about that, Sophie chuckled, before looking at her wrist. I'm sorry, Inko. I really must be going. I just know young Midoriya is going to go on to do great things, so long as he has those he loves and cherishes beside him. Just try to keep an open mind, she added cryptically before walking down a hall and disappearing from sight. Down in the arena, Midnight stepped up to the podium. Congratulations to everyone who managed to make it through the gates. However, not all of you made the cutoff. But still, let's all give a big round of applause to everyone who gave it their all and held nothing back. If you don't see your name on the list, you have been eliminated. But make sure you stick around. We have games and other fun activities to do. Or if you're feeling it, head on out to the festival and partake in a cool beverage or tasty snack. Midnight looked as students began to leave to the dressing room, so they could change into their street clothes. Now everyone, we're going to take a short break, but first, let's find out what the next event is. As she flung her arm to the large monitor, the digital wheel spinning around rapidly. And it is City Catastrophe, Midnight said into her microphone. So, we'll let the crews set up while the students catch their breaths. Author's notes. Sorry I took so long to update this story, but I really did want to see what the rest of 1B's quirks were before I continued this. Manga is still the coolest because I have to wonder, is based on onomatopoeias, but we made words for those even though it's a sound. So if a dictionary, say, made an onomatopoeia for something like world peace, would that work? Is it just that simple? I know that's a stupid idea, but his quirk is so fucking cool. It makes me question why in Canon 1B went along with the let's promote only a few of us by working together instead of letting it be a free-for-all. I know why it was done so that they didn't have to describe all the quirks, but I still think it's stupid that some people would sacrifice their chances at this year's sports festival for something like that, especially since Tokage was a recommendation student and didn't make it to the final round. So I just ignored that, otherwise I wouldn't get to use all the fun people. I do wonder how someone like Nairinjiki Shota placed higher than some of the people in his class that seem to have more adaptable quirks for long-distance running, like Pony or Shishida. So that's a thing, I guess. Next, I have been busy with work, the holidays, and Smash Ultimate. Not excusing my absence, but still Smash is fucking good. Let's hit up the review before I talk about the next chapters. I know I already told Sonic Max this, but I started a story on Iba/Izuku called Love Smash, so check that out if you haven't. Celsius, I think most people don't have Hisashi as an overseas worker because through the entire series we don't see him, and it works to make Izuku's backstory more tragic. There's a story where Izuku is the only boy in 1A with all the rest of the girls, and his dad is a dragon and he's related to other heroes, which is fun, but I think it's been abandoned. Shame. As for the pairings, I can see Jairu and Bakugo, but that's not something that really tickle my fancy. Even Izuku/Jairu doesn't do a whole lot for me. I can see them chilling and stuff, but not beyond that. On the subject of Kirishima and Bakugo, I want it to feel real. So if anything came out of that, it's not going to be at least until the summer training with the Pussycats. As for Monoma being a bad guy, to me it makes more sense than all those people saying it's Kaminari. At least I'm not going at the end of the story, oh look, it was Monoma the whole time. I'm not trying to make it a major part of the story just yet. Blaze 1992, yeah, backfire is one way to put it. Tinether, I believe that someone like Izuku, decently attractive, fit, good attitude, smart, kind, fun, powerful, heroic would be a major turn-on for most girls. But to reiterate, I am not making this a harem. It's strictly Izuku, Momo, Itsuka. I plan to tone down the flirting as the relationship progresses in maturity, sometime after the internships, since both Momo and Itsuka ended up at the same one. They'll have time to sort of grow up a bit in regards to how they interact, because I am trying to make them okay with teasing Izuku but nervous about teasing each other. So if it's not coming across well, I'll do a bit more to try and shine a light on a different angle for their relationship, as I feel that this type of interaction is very different than what they were expecting. Kamadomia, thanks. I do check up on different types of magic tricks to make sure that what he's doing is something that is in like with stage magic. Yeah, as for making him a mastermind, that's more on me just wanting to do something with some of the information we've had. I don't expect there to actually be a traitor or anything. I think so as well. Pair Shoto/Tsuyu together is pretty unique, and even though it will be a background pairing, I might come back and give it some love in later chapters. As for Ines, yeah, there is a lot in this story. It's not as OOC as, say, my Nanomachines, which is more of a humorous story than it is like my others, but I felt this has a good dynamic with how everyone interacts that it's similar enough to how they were in canon, but with the changes affecting other things. Next chapter. Yes, I did model the sports festival after the changes to how the school changed. One task on utility, which was the race. Now it's rescue, and finally it will be combat. I'll try to get some audience reaction. With how big this event is supposed to be in canon, I figured more reporters, and with how many pros are out and about, you would expect a few to give their thoughts on how it's going or the different students they see. Yeah, world building. Then we get a bar and a jackass dad in the hallway. Then we get your cat. I did write his speech, and I tried to hit that mix of corny and honest that would be motivating for people to hear it. Now I get to do it all over again with Love Smash, but from a horny little imp's perspective. Chapter 17, Never Again. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. Present Mick's voice boomed from the speakers littered throughout the stadium. With the preparations complete for the second event, I give you City Catastrophe. The sound hero rose from his seat as the meticulously designed buildings that Cementos constructed over the break were obliterated by strategically placed explosives. Man, I do not want to be on the cleanup crew for this event, he said as he leered down at his counterpart, like someone has to be. Just stop taking bets, don't open your mouth when they start wagering, Aizawa muttered to himself. Don't worry, I'm sure we'll have plenty of people on hand for that part, Hisashi laughed. Midnight went and took the stage. Okay, my scrumptious little contestants, let's get down to business. She sauntered around the platform. For this event, you will put to the test all of the skills you have learned during your rescue training. You have shown in the first event that you can get to the scene of a crime. Now let's see you work it. She began waggling herself in seductive ways. Work it? Yeah, work it? Clearing her throat after a few seconds, you will have 15 minutes to form teams, after which the event will begin. Throughout this ruined cityscape are injured civilians. The monitor behind her shows a bunch of silhouettes, each painted with numbers on and words on them. The rescues are assigned a point value in injury. This is because some of them are really hard to get, so they are worth more, or they have a difficult injury to treat. For this exercise, it will be assumed that after rescuing the injured, a team will arrive to take control. So, make sure to rack up those points. Midnight laughed into her hand. However, there is one target worth the most, a whopping 1,000,000 points, and he's located right here. She pointed on a map to show everyone where the biggest amount of action would be. Whispers carried through the crowd. Suddenly strategies began forming among people. Already they were eyeing prospective partners. Ahem, I wasn't done, Midnight scolded the crowd. The chatter died down as the proctor began speaking again. Now, since not all of you can pass, the top 4 teams will move on to the final round. So, make sure you pick your team wisely. Some students ran around and asked their classmates or whoever they thought was strongest, Bakugo and Todoroki surrounded by a small crowd. But the Bomb King had other plans. He shoved his way through the crowd. Shitty hair, you're with me. Oh, hey Bakubro, sure man. Can Hatsum join? She's pretty smart and great with tools. Kirishima asked his new team leader. Katsuki looked at the large-breasted pink-haired girl. You good with gear? Yup, I got a ton of babies to show off. Hatsum smirked as she held up a large bag full of gadgets. Fine, I know how much trouble someone can cause with just a deck of cards, so real support gear will make this easy. Bakugo turned and shouted, Hey, Flex Tape, Cronenberg, you're with me. As Siro and Shoji looked at Katsuki in confusion. Yes, you two, stop wasting time. We need to plan. Izuku instead was muttering to himself off to the side. Midoriya-san. Ochako called out to him. Let's team up. Sure, that's great. Izuku then flicked his eyes around to look at the different students. Now I just need Shinso. He walked over to the purple-haired boy who was standing by himself. Want to join my team? I guess. Once those guys who carried me realized what I did to them, they told a bunch of others, and now everyone has been avoiding me. Hitoshi shrugged. Great, Izuku cheered. Not that you being avoided is great, but it's great because you're going to do amazing on this task, and I can really use your help. I get what you mean. Hitoshi looked around as he watched people pair off. But why not with those 2 girls you're always with? They both paired off with other people almost immediately. Izuku looked around and spotted some other people. And I shouldn't just rely on the same people all the time. I mean, that's part of what we are learning here, different strategies. It would be pretty foolish to not get used to working with other quirks. As the 3 of them walked around, Izuku pushed himself closer to another student. Subiraba-san, would you like to join my team? The brunette weighed his options. Sure. I don't see anyone else giving me a better offer. Excellent. Now I just need someone with some power, Izuku told his group. And I think I just found it. As he approached his last teammate. A few minutes later, Midnight crossed the platform to begin her announcement. All right, competitors, time is up. Now you have 30 minutes to earn as many points as you can. The loud alarm blaring signaled to the teams to begin their rush to move through the rubble. Present Mike at the same time began narrating to his audience. Welcome back, little listeners. It's your host, Present Mike. The blonde man spoke into his microphone. With my co-host Eraserhead, who simply grumbled into his microphone. For this event, each student was wearing a body camera to provide maximum coverage, and were all carrying an emergency pack. The small red satchels contain various emergency service-related items, from bandages to a rescue mask. It was specially designed by the UA support department to be quick to access, cheap to make, and cover a variety of injuries that a hero might come upon at the scene of an accident. As a result, while most of the support and business department students failed to make it past the first round, this allowed them to show their own ingenuity at designing functional equipment for the everyday hero and market it to existing hero agencies for their own use, which all fit into Nizu's master plan, as he realized that simply training the heroes in his school to be better would not be enough, as the currently active heroes will need to, as the young kids today say, get with the times, man. Izuku and his team rushed through the area and came upon the first group of injured, elderly civilians. They were down in a pit underneath some rubble. Subiraba jumped down into the pit and was going to grab the first injured person before he was pulled back by a handkerchief. Wait a second, Izuku said. We can't just rush in. We don't know how put together the location is. Yururika walked over and inspected. Excuse me, are you okay? She cutely asked as she inspected the area. My foot hurts and my wife can't feel her leg, an old man with a pronounced limp said. Oh no, that's terrible, Ochako gasped. Even if the injuries were fake, they had to treat them like they weren't. She smiled as she looked at the couple. We'll get you out of there in a jiff. Subiraba, we need to brace this beam. Can you create a wall with your quirk before I use mine? The eager teen walked over and inhaled deeply, letting out a long breath as he moved his head. Instead of it all forming as a circle, the motion drew it out as oval. Okay, but now how are we going to get this off of them? He questioned. Ochako grabbed the heavy slab of concrete with her hands. Now we just cut sections off of it before we move it to make sure nothing comes down that we don't want. She instructed as she recalled all the times she watched her parents work at their construction company. So, this is why I'm here, Togurv Kamakiri stated as he walked over and extended a blade from his arm, which he used to cut through the concrete. I never really thought of using my quirk for anything like this. After a minute, they had carefully removed the heavy rocks from above the injured civilians. Okay, now let's take a look at those injuries, Izuku said as he looked over the elderly man, while Ochako asked the woman a few questions. They came to the conclusion that neither could walk on their own, and it was likely that the wife had fractured her hip. Subiraba, can you make a long board with your quirk for us? Izuku asked of his teammate. Izuku used his control of the handkerchiefs to stabilize the injured civilians' extremities, while Ochako removed their weight, and it was simple to get them on the floating solidified air which they used to get them into the open, before they ran off to help more people. Get back here, icy hot, Bakugo snarled as he blasted his way across the field, chasing the ice quirk user. Those 1,000,000 points are mine. Are you sure this is a good plan, Bakugo? Zero asked into his headset, while he used his tape to wrap up an injury. Of course, I understand that my explosions won't do a lick of good with a lot of the search and rescue, Bakugo admitted. But when it comes to high-priority targets, I can at least extract them. Having understood that in a true disaster one of the last things you want are more explosions, and that his quirk would have best frighten injured civilians. However, his speed and agility would allow him to quickly get to people whose location he is aware of and get them out. Meanwhile, he was trying at the guaranteed victory. Should he rescue the VIP target, his team was busy racking up points to ensure at least a comfortable spot in the top 4. I can see a few more this way, Shoji said over the team's radio as he used his quirk to survey the area. They are stuck in a vehicle. Kirishima grinned and ran over to the car and shoved both his hands into an opening, then applying a wrenching motion like May showed him, he became an impromptu jaws of life and got the door off the wrecked car. The injured family was pretending to be unconscious, with a note on their chest that had the words, "Neck injury, 50 points, Kirishima radioed over to May. I got a family, unresponsive, neck injury, I need something to brace." He looked more at the vehicle. Also, I think the straps are broken, so I might need some help removing the center pillar, so we can extract them. I'm coming, oh bestest buddy, May happily cheered, arriving a minute later with some particularly dangerous-looking clamps. The powerful hydraulics sheared through the plastic and metal easily, allowing Kirishima to remove the roof of the vehicle. Let's brace them and extricate. Is Zero almost here? Kirishima asked as he held the patient's head while May strapped a collar on him. He was finishing bandaging up a kid and then said he'd be right over, May responded. May rocked on her heels while the two of them waited for Zero to show up. So have you talked with him? Him? Him who? Kirishima questioned. You know the guy you have on your mind, May giggled. Kirishima stammered out, Baku. I mean, no one's on my mind. He quickly turned off his headset to give himself privacy. Yours better be off too. May nodded. It's been off for a while, so? She leaned forward. Tell me, what's the hold up? Why not talk to him? Kirishima glanced off to the side. It's just, we're training to be heroes. Now isn't really the time to be talking to people like that. May shook her head. Nope. I know that Midoriya has been talking to 2 girls already. So that excuse doesn't fly. The redhead looked at the back of the head of the patient he was holding. Well, I mean, what if he doesn't like me? That way? May pondered for a moment, finger on her chin. So, then he just doesn't like you that way. You can find someone who does. You could try to be his friend first, then even if it doesn't go any further, then you still have a friend. The pinkette chuckled. You know, feel him out. Oh no, my hand slipped. What's this I feel? Could it be a sauntering iron? But who would keep something like that in their pocket? I should check this out, for safety. Kirishima's cheeks matched his hair. I couldn't do that to Bakugo. It's too bold. What's too bold? Zero asked as he jogged over to the car. Nothing, Kirishima demurely requested. He doesn't know how to talk to Bakugo, May shouted loudly, barely containing her excitement. Oh, that, Zero said dismissively. I feel the same way, The guy is just so angry all the time. I really don't get how Midoriya has been friends with him for all these years. Midoriya, that's it, Kirishima cheered. That's how I can get to know Bakugo more. I talk to the person who knows his history, then I don't have to make a fool of myself. May laughed even louder at this declaration, but under her breath said, "Oh, you're definitely going to make a fool of yourself. There's no way around that." "Bandages," Momo called out as she pulled the sterile wrapping from her arm. "Brace," Monoma responded, as he formed the plastic shell around the patient's leg. "I found more this way," Ida said as he ran by. "I marked the location with a flag." "So that's what, 18 saved," Monoma guessed as he approached Momo. "Re-upping my quirk." She mentally prepared herself. "Only 6 times. He only has to touch you 6 times and then this is over." He firmly grabbed her arm and his quirk copied Momo's a second later, but like always he didn't release her immediately. "Wow, such an amazing quirk, and I think I've lost a few pounds too. I'm jealous," his sickeningly sweet tone betraying the joy at how she so ever slightly squirms in his grasp. "Let's get this clear," Momo snarled. "The only reason I partnered with you is because 2 of my quirk means we can save a bunch of people. After this, I never want you to lay a hand on me again. Are we clear?" Monoma snickered. "Oh please, with how much that magician touches you. I have no plans on laying my hands on someone as used up as that." Momo kept her mouth shut as she screamed. "When this is over, you better not hope we fight, or I will end you, you little troglodyte." Momo yelled at him as he went over to where Ida had marked some injured. "I can't believe that jerk." Kendo waved a large hand in the air as Todoroki surfed off on his ice. A boy wearing a blue and white headband sighed, "Well, that's just like 1A. Leave us all so he can be the big damn hero." Kendo whirled on her classmate. "Oh, it's not all of 1A, so don't even start." The boy put his hands up in defense. "Okay, fine. Some of them are decent people, but they let guys like him, that loud one and the huge perv represent them. So, it's not crazy they all get lumped together." Growling, Kendo stomped past a ways. "Whatever, let's just try to save some people in case Mr. Cold Shoulder's plan doesn't work." Kendo angrily thought back to before the event started. "I don't need anyone, but I'm required to have teammates, so just don't get in my way," Todoroki informed the 2 people he had grabbed at random. Kendo kicked a rock as she looked around trying to find someone who needed help. If I had known this was his plan, I would have left him high and dry. Aways followed his class president. "Honestly, I'm surprised you didn't join up with your boyfriend." "I can explain that," Kendo said as she lifted some loose rubble, hoping to find people, but again it was empty. "Momo and I decided last night that if there were any team events, because there usually are, that we would try our best not to be teamed with Izuku." "Okay, but why? I mean, you 3 should work together better than most groups. Why handicap yourselves like that?" Aways looked and saw movement behind a dumpster. "We still want to be heroes, but if we keep working with Izuku," Momo was worried that she would be too reliant on him and wants to know that she can achieve results without his help, Kendo said as she followed Aways, who was tending to a small child with a few scrapes on him. "I get what she's going for, and to an extent I agree. I don't want anyone thinking I can't handle myself without Momo or Izuku, but..." Aways finished bandaging up the kid who took off on his own, out of the area to check in so their team can get points for the rescue. The bandanaed teen stood up and stretched. "But, you regret being on a team where effectively 1/3 is being useless." Kendo dropped her head and groaned. "Yeah. Okay, half in half," Bakugo shouted as he rocketed down an alleyway, intending to cut off Todoroki. The explosive teen was sure that his strategy would work perfectly. He carefully chose his team for maximum effectiveness, while he himself would either succeed at rescuing the million-point target, or he would be able to prevent any team from getting it. "Get ready to fucking die." Bakugo noticed a failure in most team planning. They were either all going for the 1 million points, or they were too slow to gain a huge lead, and it would seem that strategy would determine which teams progress, and not how powerful their quirk is. But he worked around that. A team where everyone but him could rescue people, while he either guaranteed the win, or he at least stopped anyone else from taking first. A huge wave of ice cut off his, admittedly loud approach. He would never be able to get the drop on anyone if he rushed at them using his quirk. Not that it would matter most times, but with someone whose quirk was a battlefield controller like Todoroki's, a different approach might be necessary. Nah, screw that. I just need to blow him up even harder. Todoroki was ignoring the explosions as the sounds raced alongside him. A large blast from his side froze a team as they tried to go along the rooftops to reach the high-priority target. It was just their feet, so they could get themselves out, but not without losing precious minutes better used elsewhere. He pushed himself further, faster, all because of his father. Boy, this is your debut. Inji spoke loudly in the hallway of the ancestral Todoroki home. You are showing off the true power of your design, so don't disappoint me. You will win. You will crush all opposition. It is what you were made for. Shaking himself from his thoughts, the troubled teen redoubled his efforts. It wasn't enough to win the sports festival, that's easy. But he had to win with only his mother's quirk, prove it better, prove himself better. That he never needed his father or his power to be a hero, to be the best hero. That everything he did to him, his brothers and sister, his mother, that none of it had merit. A large wave of ice formed as he slid towards the sunken-in stadium, a perfect location for an important person to be, out in the open, with nothing to protect them, where everyone can see. Extracting this target without them getting further injury would be a nightmare. But it wasn't as if he had many competitors. Surprise popsicle, Bakugo shouted as he flew over the ridge of ice, letting himself drop silently, which should have been Todoroki's first clue that something had changed. The explosions had stopped. All 60 kilograms of bundled rage crashed into the icy teen, throwing him from his frozen pathway. A wide sweep of the arm to provide needed space between the two of them was all it took for Bakugo, so forgo pushing the assault to gain ground on his opponent. Todoroki growled as someone he viewed as beneath him took him by surprise. Stomping his foot on the ground, a pillar of ice rapidly formed, launching him far ahead of Bakugo. Damn it! Get back here, Katsuki howled, his hands crackling to life, increasing his speed as he flew across the battlefield. And it looks like we have a tight race to get to the VIP. Present Mike called out as cameras were aimed to watch the battle between the 1A students. And the battle looks to be heating up or cooling down. Present Mike laughed, the only one in the stadium to at the lame joke. Both boys' speed, precision, and decision-making skills are highly developed, Izawa said into his microphone. Each making minute corrections on the fly and still maintaining their pace while keeping aware of their surroundings, the bandaged hero commentated in as neutral a manner as possible. Speaking of minutes, Midnight's voice rang over the stadium. We are at the halfway point, so let's tally some results. In first place is Team Yaoyorozu, with an impressive 798 points. For a three-man team, they certainly are moving. In second place, we have Team Bakugo, even with their named leader in a race to get the 1,000,000 points. The other four members have not dropped in efficiency. They are resting safely at 432 points. In third place, we have Team Wonderchild. Sorry, that's Midoriya at 283 points. Trailing just behind them in fourth is Team Hananuki, with 274 points. Midnight listed the totals of the top four teams. Izawa called out over the speakers, if you didn't hear your team called out, pick up the pace. There are still plenty of people to save. Up in the stands, an excited mother was cheering on her son. Oh, Yagi-san, look. Inko bounced in her seat as Midoriya ran around with his team, treating the injured people they came across. Yes, it would seem that your son is doing a remarkable job with his schooling, Toshinori said as he sat next to the enraptured woman. So, Mrs. Midoriya he started to say. Inko, call me Inko, the green-haired woman requested. Inko, so I was wondering, the pro-hero nervously said. If maybe you and I could go out sometime, maybe? I would be delighted to, Yagi-san. Inko blushed as she reached for the skeletal man's hand. You've been so good for my boy over this past year. I think I could find time for such a nice gentleman. All Might, sweating like a teenager on prom night, mentally cheered. That's wonderful. I will, pick you up this Saturday night? He asked hopefully. Saturday is a good day. I love dancing and Italian, she whispered as she leaned over to him. Her proximity and warm breath in Toshinori's ear sent shivers down his spine. She looked to the large screens to see her son climbing out of a burning building carrying an injured lady over his shoulder. Yeah, that's my boy. Toshinori sighed. He was honestly excited about having a chance to do something normal, but regretfully the push to do so wasn't entirely his own. If that boy ever finds out what I'm about to do to his mother, he knows enough about me to make my life hell. Izuku and Shinso had broken off from the rest of their team to investigate loud noises coming from around the corner and spotted a group of 5 people, all of whom were caterwauling and refused to quiet down. Izuku from the distance was able to read the sign that stated they were only suffering from distress. Izuku approached the injured civilians and tried to calm them down. This only resulted in his voice being drowned out by their cries and angry words. Realizing it was a dead end, Izuku went back to Shinso. I can't get through to them, they won't stop to listen to me, and even when they do talk to me, they are just saying mean things, he told his purple-haired teammate. Well, I don't know what you want me to do, Shinso shot back. It's not like I could use my quirk to help. The teen paused as he recalled a memory from weeks prior. That's so badass. Midoriya's voice sounded through his head. People in a panic, in need of rescue, become docile enough to transport. Shaking his head, Shinso confidently approached the loud people. Hey, he casually called out. Once he was sure that everyone had responded to him, he activated his quirk. You are all fine. Please head towards the exit. He provided his simple command and watched as the people followed it. Izuku rushed over excitedly. That was amazing, Shinso. Oh, I knew you would be great at this. Yeah, thanks, Shinso stammered, and used to having him praised for his quirk. Todoroki had managed to give Bakugo the slip. By strategically making walls of ice, he was able to direct his competition into a closed-off area and then seal him in. Now to get the points. The frost-covered teen's teeth chattered as he entered the large and open area where the VIP was sitting. The target was clearly dressed as a caricature of what a politician looked like. The note on them said, sprained ankle, 1,000,000 points. Oh, I'm dying, the crisis actor said with all the talent of an elementary school play. The pain, it is too much. Slowly the target began channeling various famous actors' performances. I need to go to the hospital. I won't last much longer. I see a bright light. Todoroki scoffed, partly at the homminess of the acting and other at the notion that a sprained ankle was worth so much. He picked the man up and placed him on his back, before running off, trying to not use his quirk as he already had a layer of frost sticking to his skin. Last minute, Present Mike screamed into his microphone. The teams hearing this began to increase their speed, hoping to get the last few points they could, picking easy targets that just needed to be removed from buildings. Kendo cursed as Aways and herself had barely found anyone to rescue, and it was slow moving with such a small team. That boy had better pull off his stupid plan, or I'm gonna slap him so hard the right side will match his left. Aways stumbled hearing his class president make a threat. Wow, harsh. I mean that is a burn, right? Yeah, but he's still a jerk for making a plan that disregarded his team, Kendo muttered. I don't think we're going to earn any more points than what we have now. Zero groaned as he stood up and rubbed his dry skin. Making a bunch of bandages really wore him down. I'm almost out of babies too, Mei said disappointedly. She would need to get the next bunch of her tools after this round was over. I hope Bakugo got what he wanted. Shoji stoically spoke as he walked with his team out of the area. Either way, I think we did an excellent job. Kirishima walked deep in thought about how he could get some time to talk to Midoriya. Maybe Yaoyorozu can send him my way, for like studying or something. After the 1-minute warning went into effect, most teams began to pack up and head towards the exit. Hey Midoriya, let's go. Suburaba called out to his team leader as he and the rest of the team walked towards the edge of the arena. Izuku waved off his teammate. I just want to check this last place. We still have some time left. The orange-haired boy shrugged and joined the rest of his team as they headed towards the exit. Izuku ducked his head as he entered a collapsed building. Hello? Anyone there? He called out. The silence was not an indicator of an absence of an injured person. He listened carefully for any sounds. Besides the sounds of the crowd, he heard a faint whimper. Hello? Izuku called out as he moved towards the sounds. I'm over here. Izuku heard a small child's voice. Izuku moved through building until he came up a small child. The kid was clutching his ankle and moaning in pain. What's wrong? Izuku calmly asked as he inspected the kid. The kid, using one hand, wiped his nose. I hurt my ankle and I can't find my mommy. That's terrible. I bet she's really worried about you. Izuku bantered as he reached into his pouch and pulled out a cold compress. Here, let's put that on your ankle and I'll carry you out of here. The kid nodded and let Izuku place the pack on his ankle. Hey, want to see something cool? Izuku asked as he pulled out the wrapping to keep it secured. When the kid nodded, Izuku tied the gauze around the boy's leg. And a 1, and a 2, and a. He counted down before pulling on both ends and the wrapping came off, untied and in one piece. The boy stopped his acting and was just watching now. Izuku carefully wrapped the gauze around the boy's leg. Looking up at the kid, so tell me, what's your favorite color? Pu purple, the kid nervously asked. Izuku gently put his hands on the wrapping. Okay, I want you to close your eyes and image that this is purple. You have to really want it though. The boy nodded and closed his eyes. Okay, on the count of 3, Izuku told the kid. And a 1, and a 2, and a 3. Izuku let go of the kid's leg and the boy opened his eyes. The gauze had turned purple. Wow, that's really cool, the amazed boy cheered. How did you do it? A magician never reveals his secrets, Izuku whispered to the kid. A loud buzzer rang out. And that is it, contestants. The city catastrophe is over. Please exit so cleanup crews can prepare for the next event. Author's notes. Few monkeys. This chapter. Wow, so many people who patiently waited for me to update. All while I farted around with writer's block and posted random stories hoping to push through it. Well, that didn't work, but I did, however, write a bunch of other stuff that might end up getting posted. And apparently I'm collaborating on stuff now. Now that this is over, I can go back to combat stuff, which won't be too tough. I can picture the fight so much easier than what I did in this chapter. The language will be simpler as well to convey what I want. Review. CODIS, that keep an open mind. I meant that as a, just be mindful of your son's relationships, he's his own man now, type thing, which I guess I completely botched that line. It is still just a triangle and I am doing a terrible job of conveying that properly. I will try to tighten the dialogue so that there is less confusion later. Guest, that is why I am trying to make Bakugo a better person. He's not going to be cuddles and sunshine, but he shouldn't come off as, why are you not in prison right now? Stone Cactus. Because a lot of the teachers don't have personalities, so I kind of inserted some to try out, making Power Loader someone who would see a problem and choose the easiest solution, even if it was really complex. We have a problem. It might be this kid. Remove kid. Does problem still exist? I could see how that comes off a bit bloodthirsty to some. Tigwilla Robot. That's a secret. Reacted. I like writing the banter. This chapter didn't have a lot of it, but that's because I was trying to focus more on the students overall as opposed to just Izuku, so it was easier to break off from him at points for commentary. That banter shall be back with a vengeance during the next few chapters. Next chapter, the first round of the one-on-ones. And the bracket is all kinds of weird. Seriously, it took me 4 hours to work this out so I could get the right fights I wanted. I revised teams a couple of times in this chapter to be believable. Chapter 18. The Sound of Silence. Midnight walked up to the podium that she announced from. Holding the microphone almost too close to her face, one could hear her soft breaths. What a fantastic show, she suddenly shouted. Let's give a round of applause to all our first-year students for showing how effective 1 month of training can be in improving a hero's capability to rescue those in danger. The crowd's reaction ranged from enthusiastic to reserved and respectful. Before we move on to clean up, let's see who is moving on to the next round, in first place. From the back of the pack is Team Todoroki, who managed to snag the VIP, totaling his team at 1,080,000. Cutting it pretty close there. The team name was displayed on the big screen. Underneath was a picture of the team. Todoroki, Kendo, and Away's faces split the screen into 3 segments. Kendo scoffed and walked away from Todoroki in search of either Momo or Izuku. Next we have Team Inaminoyorozu. That is a mouthful, Midnight inhaled to catch her breath. Standing in the crowd of students watching the television, Ida pushed up his glasses. It only made sense to have all of our names, so that we may all get equal credit. Momo dismissively responded, that's great, Ida. I'm gonna go find Zukuin or Itsuka-chan. Oh, don't want to spend more time around me. I thought we had something special, Monoma mocked. Momo flipped her hair and stormed off. With 1327 point, they safely held the leader for the entire event. Must be seething to have that illustrious first place stolen so quickly. Midnight said sadly. But don't worry, cuties, you will have plenty of chances to push yourselves back into the spotlight. In third place is Team Bakugo, whose strategy of divide and disrupt almost worked to prevent Team Todoroki from rescuing the VIP, a bold move, but it did pay off. They scored 783 points, a respectable score, Midnight grinned sadistically. With his massive reach, Shoji pulled his team into a big hug, much to Bakugo's displeasure. Let me go, damn it. Kirishima in his excitement grabbed onto Bakugo and pulled him back into the hug when Bakugo was wiggling his way out. But everyone's more excited to find out who clawed their way out of the muck and into the coveted fourth place, Midnight stated. Let's see, could it be? Is it really truly? Oh, I do say. Get on with it. Aizawa's voice carried over the stadium speakers. Oh, pooh, you're no fun eraser-kun, Midnight whined. I'm an entertainer. But fine, don't want to steal All Might's spotlight. It's Team Wonderchild. With 512 points, they passed over the next team by a scant 60 points. Izuku cheered when he heard that his team advanced to the final event. This is amazing, haha, Izuku shouted. We did pretty good, Tsuburaba admitted as he looked at the screen with all their smiling faces. Kamakiri shrugged. Win or lose, I learned a few new applications for my quirk, so that's a nice benefit. Ochako eagerly shuffled in place. Oh, I can't wait to call my parents. Yeah, great, Shinso's sarcasm-laden voice droned out. We did it. All of our quirks were as useful as the rest of them. Midoriya turned to his teammate. What are you talking about, Shinso? Your quirk was incredibly helpful. We got close to 100 points from those 5 who we only had to calm down. You practically won this event for us, Izuku explained to his downtrodden teammate. Whatever, the purple-haired teen said dismissively as he walked to the stands designated for the 1A students. Well, now that we know the teams that have passed, let's find out what the event they have. Oh, who are we kidding? It's always the one-on-one battles, Midnight said as she walked around her small stage. In the meantime, those who didn't make it to the next event, we have various games and activities to participate in, with some wonderful prizes. As the cleanup crew entered the field, which was a contracted company that specialized in removing wreckage after particularly intense hero battles, Izuku snickered as he passed Aizawa, who wore a hard hat and carried a pickaxe. The game set aside for the other students who failed to qualify ranged from physical activities like the long jump and discus throw, to games like a beanbag toss and milk bottles. On the surface, just seemed like ways to keep those who were no longer competing interested and engaged, but with allowing them to use their quirks, was part of Nisa's plan to have their students demonstrate their abilities, knowing that some quirks would be ill-suited to whatever random event they have to compete in. This allowed agencies to find more quirks and see them in other areas of effectiveness. Izuku followed the crowd of students before he felt his arms being grabbed from both sides. I had the worst time in that event, he heard in stereo. Izuku smirked as he was dragged down the hall towards the food vendors. The teen boy just waved to people as he passed them by, garnering confused looks from most of the onlookers. In the cafeteria, students, pro-heroes and civilians mingled. Conversations spread throughout. Izuku was situated between his 2 girlfriends as he ate his food and listened to them talk animatedly about their experience in the event. It would seem neither liked their choice of team all that much. Izuku glanced up and noticed a microphone was heading towards his face. He stared at the black-tipped equipment and traced it up to the eager face of a young reporter. Hi, Sky High, with 12XKR News, the woman excitedly introduced herself. What we're doing is getting an interview with students who have managed to make their way into the final event. Any comments about that? Momo huffed and got up from her seat, not wanting to explode about how much of a jerk Monoma had been in the event. Kendo simply stated that she wished she had chosen her team better. But you were on the first-place team, the reporter responded. No, Todoroki was the first-place team. We were chosen because he had to have people, Kendo angrily stated. That's interesting. We have just finished interviewing him. Would you like to see what he had to say? The reporter asked. Ugh, fine. But then I can't wait to battle him and squash his smug face, the orange-haired martial artist stated as she pounded her fist in her hand. The camera, which was connected to the television feed in the stadium, took hold, and Todoroki's face came on screen. Hi, I'm Sky High. The footage cut to her introducing herself, someone having finished up. The reporter standing next to Kendo said, we were able to do his really fast. He doesn't talk a whole lot. With the television changing to an interview, many people focused on that. Tell us, what was your strategy going in? Todoroki stared blankly into the camera. Get the highest amount of points possible. The camera shook a little, and you could hear a soft chuckle. Sky waved off her cameraman. Okay, but why head straight for the VIP? You passed by many other points on the way. Todoroki inhaled slightly, then let out a breath. In a disaster, a VIP is designated because they hold some value, be it to the disaster itself, accessing more resources, or to simply garner favor with peoples that would advance your career. A few pro heroes nodded at this declaration and recalled times they had taken actions that would further their own fame and wealth. On the screen, Sky spoke again. Seems a little cynical, does it not? Todoroki shrugged. To some maybe, but it was a calculated move for maximum efficiency. Todoroki choosing that point to walk away and end the interview. So that was the team leader of the first place team. Sky twirled back and the screen went live to Izuku. And here I am with the leader of the fourth place team, Wonder Child. Midoriya, Izuku quietly said. It's Midoriya Izuku. The Wonder Child is a nickname. A faint blush crossed his cheeks as he realized he was going to be on television. Something he knew would happen, seeing as he watched the sports festival every year and knew people got interviewed after events, but he didn't think it would happen to him. Fantastic, Midoriya, Sky continued. Tell us what your strategy was. It seemed like your team had the least amount of coverage of all the other teams. With Todoroki rushing off for the VIP, Bakugo giving chase, and Ida speeding around in marking zones, it would seem that way for Izuku's team to have slowly spread out compared to others who would run around. Izuku nervously chuckled and rubbed the back of his head. Well, I guess I just didn't want to leave anyone behind. It didn't matter to me the points that people were worth. They all needed help. So I figure even if it took me all day, I'd rescue them all, because isn't that what we're here for? We're heroes, it's our job to save everyone, Izuku said as he stared into the camera. Across the stadium, quite a few people who understood Todoroki's mindset felt shame that prioritizing any person over another, regardless of supposed value, was something they would do. Quite a few were enraptured by just how easy it was for him to say those words that seemed so practices yet flowed as if speaking from the heart. That's wow. Kid, that's amazing, Sky faltered. Where did you learn that? Izuku shrugged as he swirled his fork around his food. I don't know, it just seems like what a hero is supposed to do. It's what I would want a hero to do. Sky ended the interview there, and she quickly turned to her camera crew and whispered, let's keep an eye on this one. After the quick cleanup of the previous event, Cementos moved in carrying a large hose. As it poured thick concrete, he used his quirk to shape and harden it in moments until it resembled an adequate stage for the students to fight on. In addition, he made a chair on the opposite side of the ring to midnight stand. Present Mike's voice carried through the speaker system. Could we have all the teams who made it to the final round please enter the arena? To which 16 students from across the building made their way back down. Midnight, taking no time, approached her podium. All right, my lovelies. Let's find out who has to get down with who, she said with a wink. She pointed at the screen and the bracket fell into place. An animation of balls dispensing, each releasing a name on the screen until every spot had been filled. Round 1. Izuku Midoriya versus Hitoshi Shinso. Koziite Tsuburaba versus Shoto Todoroki. Togurv Kamakiri versus Itsuka Kendo. Tenya Ida versus Mai Hatsume. For the first half of the names, Izuku nervously looked over at Shinso, who was staring him down. Gee, good luck, Izuku said. Better be careful. One wrong slip and I can make you lose, Shinso said as he nudged past his opponent. No need to remain behind and see the results. Hantashiro versus Achiko Uraraka. Mizo Shoji versus Ijiro Kirishima. Yotetsu Uwais versus Nito Monoma. Momo Yaoyorozu versus Katsuki Bakugo. That's it. Let's see how well you hold up in the first fights, which begin in 10 minutes, Midnight said as she took her spot on the stage under an elaborate chair, cushioned and had an umbrella drink. Izuku was in his waiting room as he paced around, the door creaking open. He turned with a hopeful look, expecting to see Momo or Itsuka who could help to calm his nerves. Even Bakugo coming to yell at him would be appreciated. but he didn't expect to Todoroki step in and shut the door. "To do," Izuku started to say before the boy stomped his foot on the ground, creating a thin sheen on ice of the floor. Izuku closed his mouth and watched with apprehension as the only other person in the room glared at him. "Why?" Todoroki hissed out. "Why do you find every chance to upstage me? I freeze the competition and you just appear in first. Then I manage to score the most points and in a single interview make me seem petty." Todoroki grit his teeth. "I'm not." Izuku approached. Todoroki's fist slammed into the wall next to him. "I am trying to send a message to my father that I don't need his power to be a great hero, and yet, why do I feel like all I have done is act like him?" Izuku raised his voice. "Todoroki," he said firmly, getting the boy's attention, "I don't know what your father has to do with this, but I'm not trying to make you look bad, or me look good. I just want to be proud. That at the end of the day, win or lose, I can go to those I care about, my friends, my mother, my loves." He stumbled as he made his declaration. "To all the people that have believed in me, and look them in the eye, and say I gave it my all." Tears welled in Izuku's eyes. "I want everyone who doubted me, who tried to keep me down, who hurt me." His voice cracked as his emotions swelled. "That everyone who was there can see what I am made of, all the time and effort I put into training. I don't want any more regrets." Izuku took a deep breath. "I can't tell you how to live your life. I don't know your circumstances. But when we meet, because I have no intentions of losing, you better come at me with everything you got." Todoroki matched Izuku's gaze for a moment before he pulled open the door and shoved his way past the two girls standing on the other side. Izuku exhaled as he felt the tension leave the room. "Hey, so how much of that did you hear?" "Oh," Momo said as she tapped her chin. She said as she pulled Izuku into a kiss, "Everything. So that part about you girls being my, loves." Izuku wrung his hands nervously. "Especially that part," Kendo said as she gave her boyfriend a kiss as well. "However, I didn't think Todoroki would get to you like this, so I have come up with an effective strategy to help take your mind off everything." Really?" Izuku said hopefully, his mind filled with thoughts about how to deal with Todoroki. So you just get yourself comfortable and watch," Kendo said as she pushed Izuku into a chair. Then she sauntered over to Momo. "Just like we practiced." Momo nodded and cupped Itsuka's cheek before planting her lips firmly on her girlfriend's. The orange-haired girl moaned into her partner's mouth. They held the kiss for a moment before breaking apart, and Momo glanced at the corner of her eye to see if they had Izuku's attention. The teenage boy's eyes were transfixed on the sight before him, two very beautiful girls making out with each other. "So got other boys on the brain now, Zukuin," Momo teased. Izuku shook his head so quickly it almost looked painful. "No, please continue," he begged. Kendo sighed. "It's kind of hot to be watched while I'm kissing someone. I wonder if it's just as hot to watch." She moved over to switch with Izuku. The sound of the speaker stopped her. "Oh poo. Guess we'll have to wait for the next round." Momo turned and made sure to stretch, the motions pushing up her rear for Izuku to ogle. "I think before each match we should do this." Izuku nodded. "Yes, do this," he said as he followed his girlfriends out of the waiting room. "And we are ready to begin the first round," Present Mike said. "Now everyone, place your bets." Aizawa quickly interjected, "Betting on the sports festival would be illegal." "PSSH, you're only saying that because you know you're going to lose," Midnight egged him on. Her voice carried from her headset to theirs. "No, I learned my lesson," Aizawa said as a bead of sweat rolled down the side of his head. Present Mike smirked, turning in his chair to announce the entrances. In the red corner, from Class 1A, the Master Mentalist, the Bad Boy Brainwasher, Hitoshi Shinso. The aforementioned teen not sparing a glance as he took his spot on the stage. And in the blue corner, also from 1A, he's got a bag of tricks, a heart of gold and two lovely ladies. It's Izuku Midoriya. Present Mike stomped on his desk. Izuku quickly took the stage, hiding his face from the cameras as he tried to desperately kill his blush. "All right, my little ones," Midnight said as she moved to the center of her platform. "The rules are simple. If you say you surrender, you are outta here. If you get knocked off the platform, you are outta here. If you're knocked out, you guessed it. If you go to fair that we have to stop the match, well, let's just say you don't want that. she smiled devilishly. You two cuties got that, she asked. Yes, Shinso said without taking away his eyes from Izuku, who only nodded in response. In a faraway location, in a bad side of town, stands a dingy bar. A flickering television in the top corner of the room. This fucking kid, Shigaraki spat, thinks he's so much better than everyone. Having had a few more to drink than he normally would, his aim was off when he threw the glass. But before it could shatter on the wall, a swirling vortex opened up. It landed on the counter next to him. Don't break my stuff, or I won't serve you, Kurojiri stated from behind the bar. Oh, let him have his fun, a voice from a television on the wall said, the soft blue light. So this is the one, who seemed to have many quirks. Yes, sensei, this is him, Shigaraki said, as he folded himself on the bar stool. Interesting, let us see his many quirks, the voice said menacingly. And begin, Midnight shouted. Izuku watched his opponent, intent on keeping quiet while he prepared his strategy. Listen to that crowd, Shinso said as he looked at the stadium. Must be nice to have all that adoration. A good quirk, or in your case whatever the hell you have. Izuku's mouth stayed shut as he thought more of an effective strategy. But what I'm more jealous of are those two girls of yours, Shinso said, the words causing Izuku to pause. I mean seriously, two absolute beauties, makes me want to take them from you. Shinso smiled as he watched Izuku's features shift. Almost there, just a little more and the dam breaks. Shinso shrugged. If I have to use my quirk, then so. Don't you dash, Izuku shouted before his eyes glazed over. Damn it, he baited me. And like that I win. Everyone has a button, and seriously I am sorry I had to threaten your girlfriends to win. You seem like a nice guy and they genuinely like you. So I hope there are no hard feelings for this. Shinso walked over. So, if you could just walk out of the arena for me, that would be great. Izuku's feet shifted, and he took a step forward. Damn it, no. Not like this. And it looks like Shinso's quirk hits home, Present Mike announced. It's a strong one. Able to put anyone under his control, Aizawa responded. In the stands the reactions were mixed, some of the crowd disappointed at such an anticlimactic battle, the pros discussing the usefulness of the quirk. But with the students, two girls were having very different reactions. They were shouting down into the arena, hoping to snap Izuku out of his trance. However, a loud explosion caused them to quiet down. Shut up, he's got this, Bakugo said as he planted his feet firmly on the bar in front of him. Sato spoke up, he's under Shinso's mind control. How is he going to get out? Mind control, bah. What's a trick that you always see cheesy magicians use? Bakugo cackled, as he recalled a time in the past, the exact day he stopped using henchmen to do his dirt work. The crowd watched as Izuku lifted an arm up to his ear and pulled out a coin on a string. Only got one shot at this, Izuku thought to himself as the coin moved back and forth. From his angle, Hitoshi could only watch as Izuku moved his arm. He has some impressive willpower to do that much, but he's got no way out of he muttered to himself before pausing. Why did he stop? I didn't tell him to stop. Izuku's body stopped before the edge of the arena, the coin slowly moving back and forth. His right hand rose in front of his face before he snapped his fingers, before stumbling forward. Dumbass hypnotized himself. Bakugo laughed loudly. But Katsuki, Momo said. He might still say something on accident, and I doubt he'll have another chance to do that trick again. Nodding in agreement. Yeah, that's why he needs to use an act he hates. He can't perform most of his tricks without stuff or talking to people. I bet the coin was literally all he could get. Izuku twirled to face Shinso, the purple-haired teen in confusion. Hey, how did you get out? Nothing hit you. Izuku opened his mouth to respond but quickly shut it. He raised both of his hands, one above his head and the other below it. I don't know what's going on, Present Mike said as he looked to Aizawa for an explanation of his student. Aizawa shrugged. I honestly don't know. I've never been able to peg down what his quirk is and he refuses to say. So, we'll just have to wait and see. Bakugo groaned. He did this once in middle school. I hated it. He hated it. But it's smart. Izuku swiped his hands up and down respectively, his face suddenly painted in black and white marks. Fucking creepy-ass mime, Bakugo said. Izuku's body lurched to the side and he caught his head, before he straightened himself up. At this point the crowd was quiet, the fighter suddenly having applied makeup to himself, causing confusion. Izuku pinched 2 fingers together and dragged them across his lips, like he was zippering them shut. Shinso growled, "Are you mocking me?" He rushed his opponent, only for Izuku to place his 2 hands up. From an onlooker's perspective, Shinso just seemed to stop and crumple to the ground. For the purple-haired boy, he felt like he just ran into a brick wall. Looking up from the ground, he saw Izuku shake his head in disappointment before the mime felt his way along the invisible wall before coming around it. "Is this a joke?" Shinso said as he scrambled to his feet. "Some weird form of telekinesis, huh?" Izuku dodged a punch that Shinso threw his way. He stepped over an invisible object and gripped the air in front of him before pedaling away, the silent teen floating as he crossed the arena. Izuku hopped off his invisible bicycle and stared at the furious face of his opponent. He seemed to fiddle with his hands before spinning something above his head. Shinso once again ran at Izuku, only to have his arms suddenly pinned to his side and his movement falter as Izuku yanked on some sort of rope. "When I get out of this, I am going to kick your ass. You hear me?" Hitoshi angrily said. Izuku calmly started to reel in Shinso as he was dragged across the stage. Once his opponent was close enough, he finished tying up Shinso before he rolled him off the stage and into the grass. Midnight stared in confusion before her brain registered that Shinso had lost. Hitoshi Shinso is out of bound. Somehow, Izuku Midoriya is the winner. The spattering of applause from the audience did nothing to dampen the smile on Izuku's painted face. He hopped off and moved over to a struggling Shinso. "Seriously, what the hell is this?" Izuku shook his head and undid the imaginary bindings. After doing so, he unzipped his mouth and removed his face paint. In the same manner, he put it on. "What did I say day one?" Izuku asked. Shinso shifted so he was sitting on the grass. He extended his hand, which Izuku grasped and helped him stand up. "You're a magician," Hitoshi said slowly. Izuku beamed. "And I can do a whole lot of tricks." "You're crazy, you know that," Hitoshi said as he stared at his classmate. "Haha, yeah," Izuku said suddenly as his eyes glazed over. "You really are a simple one, aren't you?" Shinso grinned as he walked away before disabling his quirk. Author's notes. I cannot stop. I will not stop. For everyone thinking about Monoma getting his ass kicked, I have spent 1,000 years dormant in a frozen monastic temple beneath the North Pole. I have concocted the most clinically perfect beatdown in all of human history. Do not worry, it shall be glorious. I hope people like the fights. I can't wait to get through them all because there are going to be so few of them that are even close to canon. I will have my hands full with them. Normally there is a bigger review. But I really only have one I want to address. Rotrax, I have no idea what you were trying to say. I am sorry. Chapter 19. Preliminaries. After his match ended and a quick stop at the bathroom, Izuku trudged up the stairs to the 1A booth where his class was seated. "Wow, getting up and down is going to be the real fight today," he joked as he seated himself next to Momo. With how loud the crowd was talking about the fight, he noticed that his classmates were being eerily quiet. "What?" Izuku looked around at that. "Dude, what the hell is your quirk?" Siro shouted. "I told you guys on the first day, didn't I?" He looked to Momo, assured that she would have remembered if he told them or not. "Izuku, sweetie, you said you were magic," Momo bluntly stated. Izuku nodded. "Oh, okay then, we're good," Izuku happily said and faced the stage again. Before anyone else could speak up, Midnight's voice came over the speakers. "Would Cozy-eyed Tsuburaba and Shoto Todoroki please take the field?" On the 1A side, the silent student Shoto Todoroki, having chosen to forego spending time in the waiting room because of a run-in with his father after the second event. "Shoto, choosing to continue this petty rebellion of yours is costing you." Endeavor's deep voice carried throughout. "Twice, this upstart nobody has managed to make you look foolish. It is time you stop acting like a child and embrace my power." Shoto scoffed and stomped away from his father, his anger boiling over, and he saw that Izuku had entered his waiting room, no doubt to prepare for his match. Todoroki didn't care that he could see Yaoyorozu and Kendo heading to the same door. He would have words with the apparent cause of his frustration. As Todoroki rose from his seat in the stands to make his way down to the field, a voice called out to him. "Hey, Todoroki," Izuku said, catching his attention, to which he glared harshly. "Good luck?" Todoroki faced the doorway. "I don't need luck. I'm better than him," he coldly stated. When he was out of earshot, Bakugo whistled. "Wow, and I thought I was a dick." Shinso stepped in with a drink, rubbing his shoulder. "That guy's in a bad mood," Shinso muttered. "Hey, magician, I found your girlfriend," he said, pointing behind him as Kendo came to join Izuku. "One of them at least." "So, hypnotism?" Itsuka questioned as she sat in Izuku's lap. "Really?" Momo's eyes widened. "Darn, I was next to the best seat in the house this whole time," she faked lamentation. Izuku chuckled, hugged Itsuka, and nodded. "Yeah, it was the only thing I could think of to get out of being mind-controlled. Just put myself in a trance," Izuku admitted. "Wait, that's what you did?" Shinso shouted in disbelief. "It worked, didn't it?" Izuku shrugged. Momo looked over at Shinso, who had gone back to sipping his drink. "I want to know what you said to get him to talk to you," she asked. "Izuku's not dumb. He knows what your quirk is, and yet he still fell for it. So, what did you say to get him to break?" Shinso stopped sucking his straw and froze. "Shit, if I say that I joked about raping them, I'm a dead man. Why did I have to try to win? Fuck." He slowly let go of the straw and made a noise of confusion. Izuku took pity on him because Shinso was playing to the rules of the fight. "He just trash-talked my mom a bit." He leaned his head back and winked to the purple-haired boy. A crackling explosion on the other end of the seating drew everyone's attention. "Oi, you ragging on Inko? I'll blow you the fuck up," Katsuki roared. Izuku shrugged as Shinso stared at Izuku in fear. "Hey, just think of it like this. If you fought Kaken, you might have one." Shinso wisely moved to sit in the back a bit further from Katsuki, who was making threats at everyone who tried to calm him down. He turned when he felt something tapping on his shoulder. "Hey, just so you know, Izuku's not the only one to have heard what you said down there," Jairu mentioned as she leaned back, relaxing in her seat as she didn't have any matches to go to in the tournament. "And you're not going to tell anyone," Shinso quietly said, not to draw attention to himself. Jairu looked at him from the corner of her eye. "As long as what you said stays just a way to get people under your quirk, but if you actually try that," she threatened. Shinso waved his hands in front of his face. I know, he responded quickly. "I've always known. Had a bunch of that shoved in my face because of my quirk, actually." Jairu grumbled. "Man, that sucks hard. You don't seem like a bad guy. Could use a nap and a haircut, but it probably sucked growing up and everyone thinking of you like that." Shinso looked at his cup and swirled the contents. "Yeah, it did. Hard to make friends when people didn't want to talk to you. Even had a few people do bad stuff and blame me for it," Shinso admitted. "Honestly, I've used my quirk in the last few weeks more than I have my entire life." Jairu nodded. "I can see how that might mess you up a bit," she said softly. "Maybe if you want to try talking about it, I could listen." "I'm kind of good at that," she chuckled and pointed at her earlobes. "That sounds nice, actually," Shinso agreed. "Cool," she said as she closed her eyes to listen to her music. Shinso smiled. "Yeah, cool." Present Mike shouted his introduction, pulling everyone's attention back to the ring. And now for the first fight between classes. From 1B, it's the resident blowhard and windmaker, Cozy-eyed Tsuburaba, the orange-haired boy laughing off the taunts from the announcer's booth. And from 1A, he's son of the number 2 pro hero Endeavor. He's cold as ice. So let's give a warm welcome to Shoto Todoroki. Midnight cracked her whip as she stood up from her plush chair. "All right, my two lovely boys. Do you remember the rules I said for the last round?" Tsuburaba shouted in affirmation, while Todoroki simply nodded and glared at his opponent. "Then let's not waste any time, so begin," she signaled the start of the match. "She's right, let's not waste time," Todoroki snarled as he slammed his foot on the ground, rapidly forming a massive glacier. Tsuburaba hurriedly created a wall of air to block the path of the oncoming ice, instead causing the glacier to grow over it. For a moment he seemed safe in his little cave, but something was happening that he wasn't used to. The wall began to collapse in on him. "Aw!" Tsuburaba screamed in fright as the barrier keeping him from being crushed under a mountain of frozen water shrank. I surrender, he shouted loudly. It took a second for Midnight to respond as she, like Minnie, was in awe of the sheer power behind the attack. And Tsuburaba surrenders, Shoto Todoroki is the winner. In seconds, the ice started to recede as Todoroki applied heat to the block, quickly evaporating it. Up in the stands, everyone was silent, even Bakugo impressed by the magnitude of that attack. Damn, he's got some power behind him, Kirishima said. Kind of hot, he muttered. Momo turned on Izuku. And you have to fight that next, she shrieked. Karo, see riveted. If that's how much cold he can make, I wonder how hot he is. Koda raised his whiteboard up in the back on which he wrote, phrasing, but without making sound, everyone ignored him. Kaminari scratched his head. Okay, so I understand that he was under the ice, but why was Tsuburaba's quirk shrinking? Ida, who was sitting next to Kaminari, turned and explained. It's quite simple, really. The sudden cold caused by Todoroki's quirk caused the air molecules affect Tsuburaba's quirk to slow down. As a result, it started to shrink, Ida said as he pushed up his glasses. Oh, Shiro said with a nod. Like a boner, he concluded. Moving on from that, it seems the next fight will be starting much sooner, Karo, Turibited. Kendo hopped out of Izuku's lap. That's me, she smiled. Kiss for good luck. She leaned over Izuku and opened her mouth. Izuku slowly leaned forward and caught her lips and gave her a much more chaste kiss than she had wanted. Something to work on, Kendo said. She then turned to Momo. You too, Kendo said as she grabbed Momo's face and stole a kiss. She skipped off to go prepare for her own fight, while Todoroki began to thaw the glacier. Kirishima noticed the distracted state Midoriya was in and plopped himself into the open seat next to him that others had assumed Kendo or Momo would use. So hey, Midoriya, he said nervously. I was wondering if maybe you could help me some homework sometime? Kirishima asked. I mean, I'm not falling behind or anything, but I want to do a little better, and I figured. Izuku shook his head to bring himself back. Wouldn't Momo or Ida be better suited? They have higher grades than me? No, Kirishima shouted. I mean, Ida is a little intense, and no offense, Momo, but he tried to think of an excuse that wouldn't insult one of Midoriya's girlfriends. I think I might just be more comfortable around you, Midoriya. He rubbed the back of his head. I guess I'm free this weekend. Since we won't have classes after this until Monday, Izuku smiled at his classmate. Score, Kirishima happily thought as he now had an opening to inquire about Bakugo. After a few minutes, Kendo and Kamakiri were told to take the field. From Class 1B, it's Sword Scyther, the Mantis Menace, Togger of Kamakiri, and his opponent, the Might Fist. She's got big hands and a big heart, Itsuka Kendo. Is this a case of sword versus fist, unarmed versus armed? Present Mike announced with excitement. Give it up, Prez, Kamakiri taunted. You have no chance against me. I have weapons, you have nothing. Itsuka prepared herself by getting into her traditional kata. That is where you are wrong. The history of martial arts is long and rich. It was designed as a way for those without weapons to defend themselves against those that do. All right, my competition. I mean competitors, Midnight corrected herself. When I say begin, then I want a good clean fight. Ready, she said as both fighters nodded. Begin! The sound of her cracking whip hit the stand she was on. Kamakiri rushed Kendo, who braced herself on one leg. When the green mantis teen was 10 feet away, she sprang forward with jab, the attack looking like it would miss. However, her fist exploded in size and connected with his unguarded face as her hand slipped through his pose. Kamakiri's head whipped back and he landed on the ground hard, stunned. Kendo knew from the tournaments she competed in that the fight wasn't over until it was over, so she quickly slammed her other hand on Kamakiri's chest, causing him to exhale as she used one hand to pin him to the floor. The mantis teen struggled, but with Itsuka's muscular appendage and training in pinning her opponent, he eventually stilled and surrendered. She bounced and cheered her victory for a moment, then helped Kamakiri to his feet, bowed and thanked him for a good match. Next time, Kamakiri said as the two branched off to the 1A and 1B seating areas. Ida quickly moved out of the class area and went to the waiting room, but was suddenly stopped on his way by none other than his opponent, Hatsum Mei. I have a proposal for you, she slyly grinned at him. So what do you think about that, huh? Kendo said as she came back in. She frowned when she saw that Momo had taken Izuka's lap. To which the raven-haired girl stuck out her tongue at Kendo. Fine, I got it last time. She rolled her eyes at the childlike antics. Zero tapped Izuku on the shoulder and drew his attention. No, seriously, dude. How do you do it? I told you I'm a magician, Izuku shrugged. Not about that, you dingus. This Zero pointed at Momo and Itsuka. Dunno. Izuku shrugged again. Very well. Keep your secrets, Zero said as he leaned back, then smirked. Hey, Uraraka, since we got next fight, want to make a bet? He said loudly. I don't gamble, sorry. Ochako shook her head. I've seen what it's gotten our poor homeroom teacher up to. Zero slumped in his seat. His master plan of wagering a date shot down before it even launched. Back up in the booth. So I got Vlad at 2 cases of plus ultra ale on Kendo sweeping the competition. Present Mike said into a phone, while Izawa grumbled. Yes, sir. Putting you down with 3 boxes of Emperor black tea on Momo. He scribbled some words on a notepad. Izawa kept glancing over at the betting pad as he wiggled in his seat, a bead of sweat rolling down the side of his head. I don't need it. I'm better than this. Hizashi-kun, Midnight said into her headset. I want to put a whole tub of that special jelly down on Wonder Child. Oh ho, big wager there. Present Mike snickers as next to Midoriya's name he wrote, Crapton of Lube. Izawa pulled his attention away from his addiction for a moment to announce the next fight. For the sole student in the support course to make it to the final round, we have Hatsum Mei, and her opponent from the hero course, Ida Tinya, he said dryly. Wow, that was almost as robotic as these 2 competitors. Present Mike chuckled. From the support course, Higuri is always complaining about the noise. It's the explosive mechanic, Hatsum Mei. Present Mike redid the intro. And from 1A, the speed demon himself, the textbook definition of a nerd. Ida Tinya. Ida, at this point, already felt ridiculous, but Present Mike's introduction made him blush in embarrassment. His opponent, however, was lapping it up, waving and drawing as much attention to herself as possible. Izuku nudged Momo, getting her to look at him. Hey, I'm gonna go to the bathroom real quick and maybe grab a snack. You want something? He offered. Momo nodded. Can I get a hot dog? It's full of fat, and that might give me a little extra fuel in my fight. Itsuka shoved a bill into her boyfriend's hand. I want a green tea, she requested. I could use some hot, green liquid pouring down my throat, she teased and winked at Momo. Not to be outdone, Momo turned to Izuku. Make sure it's a big hot dog. I just love a nice, girthy way, she started to say before Izuku jumped up. Okay, I'm going while my dignity is still intact, Izuku said as he rushed out of the room, his cheeks crimson in embarrassment. He heard the fight between his classmate and the support student begin and was hoping it wouldn't be over as quickly as the other matches were. However, the line for snacks was still long. But he managed to get the tea and hot dog for his girlfriends in a reasonable amount of time. His return trip, however, had a roadblock. A big, flaming, angry father of a roadblock. Boy, we are going to have words, Endeavor said down to Izuku. Izuku realized he was standing in a deserted hallway, as this was the way back up to the student and teacher section of the stands, so most foot traffic wouldn't be in this area anyway. So, wouldn't you want to speak to your son instead? Izuku nervously chuckled. The flame hero glared at the boy in disgust. You are weak, he bluntly said. You are not an equal to my creation, but he is being difficult. So I am telling you, in your fight, you will bring him to use his fire. It is his destiny to use it. Izuku stood still weighing his options, but a faint muttering could be heard. Just deck him in the face. Haven't practiced fire tricks? Outrun him, maybe. Boy. Endeavor snapped at Izuku. My name is not Boy, Izuku shouted back. And you know what? Fuck you, he swore. I don't know what the hell you've done to your son to make him the way he is now, but I won't make him use his fire. Not because you ordered me to, he confidently stepped up to the angry father. I will make him use his fire, because he needs to, not for you, but for him and everyone else. Izuku's shoulder checked the large man and almost lost his balance. Now if you'll excuse me, I have 2 wonderful ladies to sit with and watch my friends give it their all. Endeavor whirled on his heels, intent to yell at this insolent brat, but a smiling face took up his vision instead. Enji, my old friend. All Might said as Izuku turned down a hallway. Please, let me pick your brain a moment. He slung his bulky arm over the number 2's shoulder and forced him down the hallway. You see, it's my first time teaching, and I was wondering if you had any tips on training, seeing as you've done such a fantastic job with your son. I was hoping you'd give me your secret, All Might said firmly with no disguise in his tone. Tsh, learn it yourself. Endeavor stormed off. Prick, All Might said as he deflated and walked off quickly, back to his seat with Inko. Izuku returned to his seat and handed both girls their snacks. So what took so long? Momo asked. Izuku shrugged. I got stopped by a concerned parent, he air-quoted. Really, what for? Itsuka followed up. The parent, wanted me to help them with something, but I had to turn them down, Izuku said as out of the corner of his eye he met Todoroki's understanding gaze. But what's been going on with this fight, and why is Ida wearing all that junk? Momo snickered. Seems that Hatsum managed to trick Ida into showcasing some of the support course's inventions. Izuku nodded. How surprised they don't just have a workshop where businesses come in to see what the students are making, like a science fair, Izuku wondered. Momo's eyes sparkled in excitement. Ooh, that's a great idea. I'll call Mommy and Daddy and see if the company wants to send some people to UA. Get a look at the future engineers and maybe tap a few of them before they make a big debut. The heiress squealed in delight as she pulled out her phone. That's going to give our company such a competitive edge. She leaned over and kissed Izuku firmly on the lips. Thanks for the business idea, she told him as she walked off to make the call. You know, sometimes I forget she's got more money than God, Kendo said as she watched Momo walk away. It's amazing how excited she can get, Izuku agreed. She's like a puppy. A cute, sexy puppy, but still I don't know how I would have been if I grew up like she did. And Hatsum May is out of bounds. Ida Tinya is the winner, Midnight announced. Demon woman, Ida accused Hatsum as he ran off, then turned around only to remove the equipment he had on and return them. Kendo snorted in amusement. Guess I'm fighting him next. I've tested my fists against swords. Now I do it against legs. The next 2 students competing left to their respective waiting rooms. For 1A, we have someone whose power is to create sticky, white substance. So don't feel bad if you mistake him for a regular teenage boy, Hantaciro, Present Mike introduced. Ciro, not deterred by the joke, ran out onto the platform. Being so far into the competition, he expected something to try and cut down on all the competitors. And his opponent, Ochako Uraraka. A girl so sweet she vomits rainbows and sparkles, Present Mike said loudly. It was one time, Uraraka protested as she met Ciro on the stage, her pink cheeks flushed in embarrassment. Okay, but it was really cute when it happened, Ciro bantered. Even if no one could figure out how you did it. Did I ever tell you of the time when I managed to have 6 different colors of splue? Midnight wanted to say before her microphone cut out. No one wants to hear of your exploits, Aizawa quickly said over her, so they didn't get an even bigger fine. The protesting crowd did not deter him. Degenerates, all of you, he hissed in annoyance. Oh pooh, I guess I'll have to start a blog or something about my fun times, Midnight whined. But let's see if this cutie can avoid a book dash, Midnight kept speaking. Seriously, we are airing this nationwide, Aizawa pleaded. Such a bore. How do you kids survive classes with him? Midnight pouted. Anyway, begin, she cracked her whip. Ciro shot his tape out. Both strands headed straight for Uraraka, who touched her clothes and floated over it. And a magnificent dodge, from the gravity girl, so graceful, Present Mike commentated. How will the tape dispenser make a comeback? Ciro aimed higher as he tried track the moving target, but with her height, speed, and his velocity, he was missing his shots. A blind strand managed to tag her foot. Sorry, but it looks like I'll win this one, Uraraka, Ciro boasted as he pulled down with force. Ochako touched the tips of her fingers together. Her sudden shift of gravity and the speed she had been falling at increased, turning her into a projectile, one that landed forcefully on Ciro, knocking him to the ground. The brunette pinned his hands to the arena floor. ISHRMMDR, Ciro said as his voice was muffled by the weight on his face. What? Midnight asked as she leaned closer. I surrender, Ciro gasped out as he moved his head from between Uraraka's thighs. But do I have to move? He grinned up at the girl who squealed and got off of him. Darn, he grumbled as he got up. Good fight. He stuck out his hand to his blushing opponent, who shook it and left the arena quickly. Izuku shook his head. He should have swung her around. Now down. So even if she got her gravity back, she'd have flown out of the ring, he said as he pulled a notebook and pen from his sleeve and wrote some notes about the distance and speed he saw Zero use and how long Uraraka maintained velocity from her jump. The next bout between Shoji and Kirishima was in Izuku's opinion much more boring, as the two boys battled with their own wrestling techniques. Shoji attempting to use his limbs and greater strength, while Kirishima would harden and soften to shift his density and make it difficult to pick him up. Itsuka was yelling and cheering as she watched the fight. Her interest in martial arts made this more entertaining for her. "Oh, why wasn't this a cage match?" Itsuka complained. "Someone give him a chair," she screamed from the stands, shouting encouragement to both the Wanna boys. After a good 20 minutes, Kirishima managed to pin Shoji, his greater endurance surpassing Shoji's strength. The next two competitors strode out into the arena, causing Momo to scowl as she watched the arrogant blonde step up to the platform. And in the second-to-last match of the preliminaries, we have the last chance for 1B to put a student through, Present Mike announced. "It's a shame they've been seated against each other, but what are you gonna do?" he shrugged. On one side, we have Yosetsu Aways. His binding quirk fuses objects on the atomic level. And his opponent is Nito Monomo, who can copy the quirk of anyone he touches, Aizawa said quickly, hoping to prevent any strange outbursts from his co-anchor or referee. Midnight grinned up at the announcer's box. "Let's get on with the fight," she shouted. Aways opened with fusing his shoes to the floor of the arena, something to make it more difficult to throw him out. Monoma instead slowly walked the edge of the arena, far away from his opponent. "Monoma, I don't know what you have planned, but it won't work. I'm immovable," Aways shouted at him. "I know, and thank you for that. Really makes it easy to do this." Monoma sneered as he fired a blast of flame towards Aways, who scrambled to the ground. "Oh hey, what the hell? That can't be legal," Aways shouted over the roar of the flame. "Ms. Midnight, was there a rule that prevented me from acquiring a quirk before I entered the fight?" he asked the referee. "Technically no, but..." Midnight admitted copy quirks were incredibly rare, and there wasn't an explicit rule against it, though one could argue it counted as bringing tools from the outside in. "I'll allow it for this fight, but not afterward. We don't know whose quirk you're bringing into the fight." Monoma chuckled as he thought back to how easy it was to get such a strong quirk. "Mr. Endeavor, sir, could I please have your autograph?" Monoma shouted as he found the number 2 hero. "I wanted to get All Might's, but I thought that I should get a real hero's signature instead," he suckered up to the pro. "Picking at people's strings is so easy," he thought to himself as the grumpy man quickly signed it. Monoma made sure to brush his hand subtly, then produced a small flame. "It's so inspiring to see people with real quirks make a difference and not those with secrets and tricks," he said as he walked away to disguise his intentions. Aways, who had fused himself to the floor, could only shrink further and further down as the burning flames got closer to his body. "Arg, fine. I surrender," Aways shouted, making Monoma stop his fire. "Could you repeat that so everyone can hear?" Monoma smiled at his opponent. Aways grumbled and moaned, "Fine. I said I surrender." He unfused himself from the floor and stomped off the arena. "And the winner is Endeavor. Sorry, Nito Monoma." Midnight snarked at the kid who borrowed someone else's power to win his match. Monoma simply smiled and walked back through the tunnel. In the stands, Momo's scowl deepened. She had been hoping that Aways would have defeated Monoma handily. Grr. Why did Ms. Midnight allow him to continue fighting? He was clearly cheating using a stolen quirk, she huffed in her seat. Izuku rubbed the back of her hand with his thumb. "Hey, worry about your fight. Kaken isn't going to go easy on you because you're a girl, you know," Izuku encouraged her. "Of fucking course I won't," Bakugo shouted as he shot out of his seat to go to his waiting room. "If Princess thinks she's getting a free pass because of what's in her pants, then she's got another thing coming," he declared as he exited the one seating area. Itsuka shook her head. "Well, you can't say the guy discriminates at least," she admitted. "Just take it nice and slow, though," she advised Momo. "He's got the power behind him, so make sure to keep a distance." Momo nodded as she began to think of the most effective tools to make. I think I have a plan, she nodded to herself. Izuku shuffled his feet for a moment. If you want, I know a lot about his quirk. I could maybe… He tried to offer but was silenced by Momo putting a finger on his lips. I know you just want to help Izuku, but I must decline, she told him firmly. I need to beat him on my own, and I think I can do just that, Momo said as she stood up and stretched. Kiss for good luck. I'm really going to need it, Momo requested. Sure thing. Izuku leaned in and gave he a kiss. No matter what happens, we love you and support you, Izuku whispered in her ear as he hugged her. Momo blushed furiously and pulled back as she wiped a stray tear. Thank you, Momo nodded. Itsuka, with much more excitement in her, grabbed Momo and planted a loud kiss on her lips. Mwah, go kick his butt, girlfriend, Itsuka said as she pushed Momo out of the room. She turned back to Izuku, who was just open-mouthed staring at her. What? You handled all the touchy-feely, lovey-dovey stuff. I give pep talks, Itsuka said as she sat in Izuku's lap. Izuku rolled his eyes at her before wrapping her in a tight hug. Geez, she's going to be just fine. Bakugo isn't a complete bastard, Itsuka said. Hopefully. And here we are, folks, the final preliminary battle. We have the beautiful and graceful Momo Yaoyorozu, heiress to the Yaoyorozu fortune. 1. A's genius and packing a powerful quirk. She's stacked in more ways than one. Present Mike introduced her. Now her opponent, Katsuki Bakugo. His temper isn't the only thing that's explosive, the blonde MC announced. Oi, fuck you, Bakugo shouted up to the booth. And he's just as beautiful and graceful as his opponent, Mike teased. You're goddamn right I am, Bakugo responded, not one to ever turn down a compliment. He fixed his glare on Momo. So, ready to die, princess? He taunted. Momo took a deep breath. You wish, she shot back. He body sparking red electricity, while she watched Katsuki's set of crackles in his palms. Ooh, such vigor, such youthful intensity, Midnight whined. If only this was a bedroom, she started to muse. Get on with it, Momo shouted. Bakugo snarling. Let's go already. Midnight dropped her shoulders. Fine, fight or whatever, she waved off the two teens. Bakugo, hearing the blaring horn, exploded across the field at Momo, who was still forming an object. He pulled back his right fist, prepared to blast her straight off the platform when a pole jutted out of her foot and into his gut, taking the wind out of him and sending him sprawling. Of course you'd go for a frontal assault, Momo taunted as she finished forming a tall shield. I just didn't think you'd be so obvious about it, she stuck her tongue out at him. Oh princess, you are gonna get it, he snarled as he flipped onto his feet. He propelled himself forward, and with subtle adjustments weaved side to side with his quirk. Momo braced herself for him to attack from either her left or right. She kept the shield up on her left while the pole was pressed against her side, so she could take a swipe at him if he came on that side. Bakugo snarled and dipped low. Crap, my legs, Momo thought to herself as she dropped her center of gravity and braced the shield against her knee and shoulder, but all that did was put her in a position to be toppled as Bakugo landed his full weight on the metal and stomped down hard. Momo was knocked to the floor by the impact and didn't have time to adjust before the boy slammed his fists onto the metal, detonating his quirk before, during, and after the strikes. The smell of smoke and flashes of light obscured the vision in the stands as Bakugo wailed away at the shield that was protecting Momo from his onslaught. Ah-ha-ha-ha-ha, he laughed loudly. I'm gonna get you, princess. Pretending to be a turtle won't help you. I'll crack this shell. Then I'll crack you, he threatened as the metal dented and reddened as it heated and deformed under his blows. Momo struggled as her arms became numb after weathering his strikes. Come on, think, Momo shouted to herself. He's too heavy for me to lift in this position. I'd need a press or a jack to get him off of me, but that would use up all my stored fat cells. She began to worry about her odds. I know they said they'd support me, but who wants to support a weak loser, Momo thought. Izuku would have a trap that he could spring, and Itsuka would spring into action. She wouldn't hide. Spring, Momo's eyes widened as she put her hastily prepared plan into action. Under the shield, red sparks formed, but through the smoke and lights, Bakugo couldn't see what was going on, until with sudden force he was thrown clear across the field and skidded on the stone. Momo stood standing with a cartoonish-looking boxing glove attached to a spring. "You did not," he snarled as he stood up. Momo curtsied to Bakugo as she began to form a large barrel. Bakugo didn't wait. He launched himself across the field at ludicrous speeds. "Not going to let you make anything else," he shouted as he reared back his palms. Momo wheeled the cannon in front of her as she aimed it at Bakugo. She pulled the rope that fired it moments before Bakugo exploded both his hands. The entire field was covered in smoke and a figure was blown clean off the stage. "And Momo Yaoyorozu is out of bounds." Midnight waved her hand and coughed. When the smoke cleared enough, Bakugo could be seen sucking in deep breaths of air, and he trudged over to the passed-out girl. "Damn, that might have worked if I wasn't used to my own explosions." He wiped his face with a shaky, reddened hand. He scooped her up and walked out, his intended destination the infirmary. "Oi, Deku, come take care of your woman," Bakugo shouted up to the stands. Izuku rolled his eyes as he and Itsuka quickly departed to catch up to Bakugo on his way to Recovery Girl. "What an explosive finish," Present Mike announced. "We'll take a short break and return to the action after everyone's gotten patched up." Author's notes. I want this done yesterday. It would have been so cool to drop a chapter 1 year after starting the story. I know, right? 1 whole year of writing. Except for that couple months around Christmas where I was dead. So many stories, so many ideas. It's been great, really. Love all the love that everyone's thrown my way. Really digging how much people like my work. How many followers I've gotten and favorites, and not just on this story. On all the ones I've written, just a hodgepodge of crazy ideas, branching out, trying new things. I have an AO3 account that I'm cross-posting stuff, but not everything. So that's going on. It's the same name as this account. I'm a basic bitch. Let's do some review. Vilkith, you bring up some very good points. Do all quirks just have a similar trigger? Because otherwise his quirk would be weird and almost useless, not knowing how to turn them on or whatnot. Also, yes, Momo clearly doesn't know how to use her quirk. Because first off, she can make mass that outweighs her. So there is clearly a break of the laws of thermodynamics to begin with on conservation of mass when she does this. Secondly, how does that atomic structure work? What is the atomic structure of a toaster? Like, is she needing to will the atomics into steel, copper, plastic, and rubber? How does that work? Why doesn't it work to make living tissue? Did she try to make a person one time and nothing happened, or did she get some horrible abomination? That's a story idea right there. Yeah, that's why I tried to change it up to the CRU, combat, rescue, utility. I felt that covered more usage of quirks and displayed the education standards that UA has updated on. The abuse of the quirkless is a whole ordeal, and one of the best jumping-off points for stories, and just amazing. So much detail to tread, and it's still so fresh. The great Bubba J, I always imagined that Shoji designed some inset panels in his room to hide his shit, so it just looks like he's a minimalist, but then he'll open up his wall and he just has beer and video games and other junk, because no one can get a read on that guy. Starfictor, I forgot about that dude, man. Someone could write a whole Xiaolin Showdown crossover with Shingon Wu and stuff. And that martial arts shit. SMA79, I'm sorry, but those two girls, while capable, just don't have the natural bloodlust to deliver a bone-crunching beatdown like Bakugo can. Son, and who was ready for the Jairu/Shinso, or the one-sided Siro and Uraraka. You don't see this word count, schmerd count. I like to respond to my fans, and on FFN this is the only way, and it lets people know I care about their input. Chapter 20. He has returned. With a groan, Momo slowly opened her eyes, her sight being filled with the sterile white ceiling of the on-site medical office at the sports festival. "Oh God, my head," she moaned as she tried to sit up. A firm hand pushed her back down as she felt a cup being placed in her hand. "Hey, beautiful," Izuku smirked. "How are you feeling?" he asked as she sat on one side of her bed. "Like crap," Momo sighed. She once again slowly began to rise. This time the hands supported her into sitting up. "Yeah, Bakugo was pretty rough with you," Itsuka admitted as she rubbed her girlfriend's back. A stray tear fell from her cheek and Momo began sniffling. "Nah, no, I lost and," she started to sob. "I've been so useless. I couldn't even make it past my first real fight." She covered her face in shame. That's ridiculous. Izuku quickly hugged Momo and rubbed her shoulder. You're amazing. Kaken is just a freak. He tried to comfort. Oi, fuck you, Deku, Bakugo said from his stool as he recovered his stamina from Recovery Girl's quirk. Yaoyorozu, you were pretty tough, he said firmly. Not many people are willing to take my explosions head-on, he grunted in admiration. Izuku gasped loudly. Oh my gosh, he said your name, he squealed in delight. He recognizes you as an equal. Izuku happily squeezed the very confused woman. What? Momo stuttered. Deku, what the fuck? Stop revealing to everyone my methods, Katsuki ordered. I lose my tough and mysterious edge if you let people know I can give a damn. Okay, but why though? Itsuka asked in confusion. It makes me cool, Katsuki huffed in annoyance. Itsuka glared at the nonsense that was that answer, but before she could accurately formulate a way to explain why that was stupid, the announcer called out over the speakers. Will Izuku Midoriya and Shoto Todoroki please come to the stage? Oh, guess it's time for me to put on another show, Izuku smiled. He leaned over and kissed Momo on the cheek. I'll try not to be long, but I got something I need to do in this fight, he said as he moved to kiss Itsuka as well. What, nothing for me? Bakugo teased. I knew it, Izuku shouted as he ran out of the room. You know nothing, you little fucker, Bakugo roared back. Katsuki reached over and grabbed the remote and flipped the TV channel to show the arena. Hope whatever he has planned for half and half doesn't get him killed. Be a real shame if I can't be the one to blow him up, Katsuki said as he reclined in the hospital bed. And we are back for the quarterfinals of the final event for the first-year students, Present Mike happily announced. Coming to amaze the crowd with his astounding, mystical powers, Izuku Midoriya, and his opponent, sporting a scowl fit for a Caped Crusader, Shoto Todoroki. The two teens observed one another from opposite sides of the arena, neither willing to look away in some bizarre game of chicken. Begin! Midnight shouted as she signaled to the two competitors to start their battle, breaking them out of their trance. It's already over, Todoroki hissed as he created another massive glacier with his quirk, encasing most of the arena in ice.
Dédame Midnight stuttered.
And it would seem that Izuku Midoriya is unable to continue, she turned to the camera. Todoroki is the... Pausing as she noticed a flicker of movement in the corner of her eye that could only have been noticed by an experienced hero. The fight is still on, she happily shouted. The crowd, noticing from higher up what the announcer was talking about, exploded into applause and cheers. What? Todoroki exclaimed as he tried to see where Izuku had hidden himself. He twisted his body looking around the ice to try and find out where his opponent had gone when he froze as he found himself staring directly at Izuku, or his reflection in the ice. A fist rapidly ejecting itself from the frozen prison struck Todoroki in the jaw, making the teen stumble. Gonna have to try harder than that to catch me, Izuku said as he stepped out of the ice. Then a reflection of him stepped out as well. Or me, said the copy. Me too. Another Izuku giggled as his opponent kept looking between the three different identical Midoriyas. The crowd silenced themselves from their cheering as they tried to figure out what was going on. Guys, Kaminari scratched his head. Is it just me, or are there three Midoriyas right now? Tsuyu shook her head. No, you are seeing correct, she assured him. In the ring, Todoroki was guarding himself from the onslaught he was under at the hands of his now many opponents. Damn it, he shouted as he created even more ice and encased one of the copies, who simply stepped out of the newly formed object and his reflection followed him. You're making this harder on yourself, Todoroki, an Izuku said. You could win this if you just used the other half of your quirk. Gritting his teeth, Todoroki grabbed one of the Izuku's wrists and flung him over himself into another duplicate. I don't need to use his quirk, Todoroki replied. Bullshit, you don't, Izuku responded. You're so stuck up on not being like your father that you're only hurting yourself. Izuku danced around another glacier and kicked Todoroki in the stomach, sending the teen back. I get that you don't like your dad. Hell, I barely know mine since he ran away and left my mom to raise me on her own. But that doesn't give you the right to half-ass this. Todoroki slammed his fist into one of the copies. What gives you the right to tell me I have to use his quirk? Because it's not about quirks, you moron, Izuku shouted. It's about the people we have to save. There are so many things wrong with not using your full power that I barely know where to begin, but I will tell you this. The copies of Izuku had stopped their assault on Todoroki, so he could focus on what Izuku was saying. What are you going to say to a family member when someone they care about dies because you didn't use all the tools at your disposal, huh? Whoops, sorry the people you love died, but I just really don't like my dad, Izuku screamed at Todoroki. It's his quirk, Todoroki shouted in denial. No, it's not. It's yours, Izuku pointed accusingly. It's always been yours. You just choose to not see it that way. There are plenty of people who wish they had what you do. You have the chance to be one of the greatest heroes in the world. And the greatest heroes make people feel safe. And they'll feel that way if they know when they see you that you will be giving it your all to protect them. Todoroki clenched his eyes shut as he tried to block out the speech Izuku was giving him. It's not that simple, he quietly said, trying desperately to deny what he was hearing. It can be. So what's it going to be, Todoroki? Izuku questioned him. Do you want to be a hero? A stray tear dropped down Todoroki's cheek as steam hissed off of his body.
Ido, Todoroki whispered.
Remembering himself as a happy, young child sitting with his mother watching heroes on television. I want to be a hero, he shouted as he grinned at Midoriya. The arena heating up rapidly as Todoroki produced immense flames from the other half of his body. Well, it's about damn time, Izuku smirked as the ice quickly melted. This resulted in his copies disappearing as their original reflective surface no longer existed. Quickly his mind went through scenario after scenario, none of them providing an answer to this new, overwhelming power. I should really practice some fire tricks soon, he thought to himself as he squared up his jaw. Izuku turned to look up at Midnight on her stand, while Todoroki's flames built up. I don't got this, he admitted as he turned to face his opponent. Shrugging to himself, Izuku bravely, or stupidly depending on how you look at it, charged Todoroki. And Wonder Child is going for a Hail Mary attack. Present Mike excitedly yelled. Oh my god, Momo groaned as she covered her face with her hands, not able to watch as the love of her life threw himself at someone with such a devastating quirk. Haha, yes, do it, Deku. Bakugo cackled gleefully as he watched his childhood rival do something so boneheaded. Thank you, Midoriya. Todoroki smirked as he watched Izuku approach. With careful enough aim, he let loose a blast of fire, rapidly heating the cold air, expanding it and causing an explosion. Through the smoke and fog a body was launched off the arena. It bounced once off the grass and rolled a dozen feet before stopping, steam rising from the form of Izuku as he lay defeated outside the arena. And Izuku Midoriya is out of bounds. Todoroki wins, Midnight declared. The medic robots were quickly dispatched to collect Izuku's unconscious body from the arena, taking him straight to the infirmary. Darn, I was really hoping Deku was going to win, Uraraka pouted. Yeah, don't know why he didn't just end the fight when he had the chance. Sato rubbed the back of his head as he tried to figure out why Izuku kept pushing Todoroki to use the other half of his quirk. It's because he's a nice guy, Jiro answered. I could hear what he was saying, it makes sense. Todoroki only using part of his quirk meant if he was ever pushed to use the other half, he'd have no control and could be more of a liability than an asset in that case. That makes a tremendous amount of sense, Ida nodded. Additionally, when it comes to saving people, you can't hold back or it could lead to casualties, he added on. Wow, that's amazing. So Midoriya was trying to teach Todoroki a life lesson in the middle of their battle? Kirishima questioned. That's so manly, he loudly exclaimed. Izuku woke up in the infirmary shortly after his explosive defeat, this time with Momo staring down at him. Hey, beautiful, she teased as she pecked him on the cheek. So I lost then, huh? Izuku sighed. The match, yes, but I think you want a friend instead. Momo pointed to Todoroki, who was calmly sitting in a seat, watching the couple. I guess that's more important then, Izuku shrugged. Hey Todoroki-san, come over here, Izuku waved, the teen standing up sharply and walking over. Izuku extended his hand. Good match, he said nervously. Todoroki smirked. Yeah, good match. Taking his opponent's hand and giving it a firm shake. Shoto! Endeavor shouted as he slammed open the door. Shut the fuck up, you're too loud, Bakugo yelled at the pro. Both of you shut up, or this cane goes where the sun doesn't shine, Recovery Girl threatened the two loudmouths. Enji, are you injured? Bruise your ego? She taunted. Snarling, the father turned away from his former school nurse. No, I have come to congratulate my son on him finally giving up his foolishness. Then do so quietly, or I'll throw you out, Recovery Girl chastised. Izuku glared at the father as he firmly gripped his son's shoulder, making him wince. Hey, you know he didn't do it for you, right? Endeavor looked down at the bedridden student. Of course not. Everything he does is to further my legacy. Momo rolled her eyes. She'd heard the legacy speech before from her parents. Yeah, I'm sure that's what you'll be remembered for, said as sarcasm dripped from every word. Endeavor glanced at the teen girl who was holding his son's defeated opponent's hand. After a moment, he recognized her. Ah yes, the Yaoyorozu heir, he said slowly as he formulated plans in his head. Todoroki, this girl will sire your children. Excuse me, Momo shrieked. Of course, you have influence, pedigree, and an acceptable quirk, Endeavor listed off. Your offspring will have even more power, politically, financially, and with a stronger quirk. Father, please don't, Todoroki hissed, hoping to get his dad to shut up. It's for the best, Endeavor interrupted. It's only sensible that she leaves this loser and choose the superior specimen. Todoroki saw the fury in Momo's eyes as sparks crackled as she began to form the butt of a gun. Dad, seriously, Todoroki pleaded. Sir, Izuku calmly said as he placed a reassuring hand on Momo's shoulder. Leave, or I make you disappear, Izuku threatened. Is that a threat, boy? You really think that you have what it takes to kill me? Enji scoffed as he rolled his shoulders. Izuku shook his head. No, one of the rules of my magic is I can't use it to kill anyone. But, he continued staring into Endeavor's eyes, I can make you beg for death. So leave now before I get creative. Endeavor raised his hackles as he glared down at the bedridden teen when a voice called to him from across the room. Hey, I do what he says, before you find out every weakness and exploit your quirk has, Bakugo warned. He'll do it. There isn't a quirk that exists that he can't analyze and turn against you, and all you do is make fire. With a click of his teeth, the number 2 pro hero walked out of the infirmary, many eyes watching him as he slammed the door on his way out. Geez, Zuka, that was terrifying. Itsuka let out the breath she was holding. Do you always make it a habit of picking fights with the toughest sons of bitches out there? Yeah, I mean at this point, kinda, Izuka shrugged. Hey, isn't your match next? Itsuka smiled and nodded before stepping away from the bed. I get to go against that Ida guy, his legs against my fists. She started shadowboxing in the center of the room. That's good and all. Not that it's going to make a difference when I trash all of you in this tournament, Bakugo scoffed. Well, see, I just have to beat Ida and then you, Itsuka said, pointing at Todoroki. Then maybe if you're lucky you'll get to fight me, the redhead teased Bakugo. Well then, get out of here and win, Bakugo ordered. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the patience waiting for the ring to be restored. After that truly wonderful battle, we continue with the second rounds, Present Mike announced. It's fist versus leg, punches versus kicks, girl v boy, he droned on. Itsuka Kendo and Tenya Ida, please take the stage. Aizawa cut his co-anchor off. We need to get you to have fun one of these days, Present Mike sighed. I do have fun. It's called sleeping, Aizawa responded. And the fight has already started. Ida Tenya has blitzed Itsuku Kendo with blinding speed, Present Mike announced. Oh ho! Instead of dodging the attack, she takes it head-on, blocking the blow with her enlarged hands. Down on the arena, Itsuka smirked. Just like I figured you would, she gloated as she grabbed Ida, lifting him off the ground and starting to walk away. You know, just because you're fast doesn't mean you should attack head-on. It's kind of a dead giveaway, even if you can get to your top speed like that. And I knew you would stand there and take it, Ida replied. Respiro burst, as he calf engines burned hot, causing Ida's body to propel forward, throwing Kendo off balance. Using the initial thrust, he backflipped in the air when her grip fell off, and he planted his foot on the back of her head, sending her to the ground. Not just a one-trick pony after all, are you? Itsuka huffed as she pushed herself off the ground. I learned a thing or two from my family. They are pros, you know, Ida shrugged as he rapidly accelerated towards his opponent. For a while the two began trading blows. While Kendo clearly had the advantage in power, Ida's speed more than made up for it. From an outside perspective, the two looked evenly matched until Ida's calf engines began to sputter. So nearing your limit then, Kendo smiled as she had gone on the defensive as Ida's thick legs hammered heavy blows into the back of her hands. Ida panted as he kept throwing kicks at his opponent. He only had a few more feet between her and the edge of the platform. That move I used heats up the engines, so after a while I stall out, he answered, knowing the fight would be over one way or another soon. Damn, that's crazy, Kendo replied. But that crazy speed would catch almost anyone off guard. She timed out Ida's next kick as they had been slowing down over the last few seconds, reversing her hand so his kick landed in her palm this time. She spun on her heels and tossed Ida out onto the grass. You got a good style. You do martial arts too? Kendo asked as she came down from the stage after midnight declared her the winner. Some taekwondo, Ida answered as he stood up. Kendo nodded. Not a bad idea. Maybe see if capoeira or sans home might be good for you to learn to broaden your moves, she suggested. Ida stretched a bit before walking. That's a great suggestion. I might look into a combat-heavy hero like Gunhead for an internship if I'm offered then. Good luck against Todoroki next round. Ugh, don't remind me. I have no idea how I'm going to beat him, especially since Izuku convinced him to start using his fire side. Kendo groaned as she began to strategize. Yes, Todoroki has a most powerful quirk, Ida agreed. While I am saddened that I won't have the chance to test myself against him, I don't think I will be losing any sleep over not fighting him. So Uraraka, got a plan for Kirishima? Zero asked. Uraraka looked over at the red-headed classmate. Maybe, she said as she thought about how her quirk and his interacted on her way to the waiting room. As she moved around the dressing room contemplating, oh, what should I do? She bemoaned her fate. If I can tag him with my quirk, I can float him away, but if he hits me in the head, I might not be able to shake that off before he really lays into me. Knock, knock, a voice called through the door. Come in, Ochako responded as she looked to see who was coming in. Oh, hello. Ochako greeted the 1B student. Tetsu smiled at the brunette. Rubbing his hand behind his head, he nervously started to speak. Hey, so, I know you gotta battle that Kirishima guy next. Yeah, and I'm at a bit of a loss, Uraraka admitted. I'm worried I wouldn't be able to beat him in a head-on fight, and that's kind of all I can do. Well, I know this might sound weird, but maybe I could help you, Tetsu responded. I mean, my quirk is pretty much the same as his, he added on, showing that his skin would turn to metal. So I think we could both benefit from this. How so? Uraraka questioned. See, it's pretty rare for two people to have such similar quirks, so if you fight him, I can see how a quirk like yours would work against me as well. And if I do well, you can learn from that just as much as I can. Uraraka pounded her fist into her palm. That's smart thinking. So do you mind? Not at all, Uraraka smiled. That's really nice of you to think of me. Present Mike was fielding calls from the other UA faculty about changes to bets before the next match, as the brackets began to shift. I'm surprised that he lost, Izawa grumbled as he stared out into the crowd. Who? Present Mike asked as he wrote down the next wager. Midoriya. I don't know, he just seemed different, Izawa answered. Tapping his pin to his chin, Present Mike mused for a moment. I get what you mean, but he was winning, up until he tried to help his opponent more than defeat him, so I think that's called an ironic defeat. Midoriya lost the match to achieve a greater victory, though helping another find peace. Well, we shouldn't wait too much longer to announce the next match. Should be a fast one, like the last bout. Izawa pressed the button to turn on his microphone. Ochako Uraraka, Ijiro Kirishima, please head onto the arena. Uraraka slowly picked herself up off the floor. Do you think I'm ready? She asked as she started to head towards the door. I think if you can do that to him, you're golden, he replied. Hey, before you leave, could you maybe? Tetsu requested. Yeah, sure, Uraraka hummed as she clasped her hands together. She shut the door to the room just before a loud crash emanated from within. You're a doll, Tetsu shouted as he picked himself up off the floor. And we are excited for the next round of the final event, Present Mike announced. In the red corner, with the red hair and rock-like body, Ijiro Kirishima. In the blue corner, her touch is light as a feather, and you will be too, Ochako Uraraka. The two competitors squared off as they waited for midnight to begin the fight. She slowly raised her whip before cracking it on the wood below her. "Begin!" she shouted as the two rushed each other. Kirishima not pulling his punches through a straight jab that Uraraka ducked. Prepared for the first strike to miss, he started to back away from her, trying to keep her hands where he could see them. "Can't let you touch me," he said as he pulled away from her. "And I don't need to touch you," she replied as she removed her jacket. "At least not right away," she added on as she twirled the fabric around until it was tightly bound. "What are you gonna do? Slap me?" He chuckled when suddenly he saw she was doing just that and snapping the cloth at him. "Hey, come on, quit it," he shouted as he jumped away from her. "That's not doing anything. My whole body is hard. Isn't it?" Also phrasing, Uraraka joked as she crouched low. Whipping the jacket upwards towards Kirishima's face, she exploited a natural reflex that all humans have to protect their eyes. The redhead flinched and guarded even if he knew that it wouldn't do anything, and that cost him dearly. When he separated his arms, he realized he was already off the ground. "Dang it," he sighed as he slumped in the air. "You win," he admitted as started to drift. After being declared the winner, Uraraka tossed the end of her jacket to pull Kirishima back to the ground. "Good match," she extended her hand towards him. Kirishima frowned for a moment before smiling and grasping hers with his own. "Yeah, good match." "Wonderful sportsmanship," Present Mike announced. "Now will Bakugo Katsuki and Nito Monomo prepare for your match." Bakugo complained about finally getting comfortable before hopping off the cot he had been occupying. He slammed open the door and started to head towards his waiting room when he heard Momo call out to him. "Yeah, what do you want, Yaoyorozu?" Looking behind her to make sure she wasn't followed and that no one could overhear her. "Look, I don't want to hold grudges, and I shouldn't be asking this of you. That guy was a dick to you," Bakugo guessed. "And you want me to put the hurt on him?" Slowly nodding. "It's not heroic or even right, but," Momo reasoned. "But he said hurtful things to you, and you don't want to tell Deku or Karate Chick because they would hurt him and get in trouble." Bakugo finished for her. "And I won't because this is a sanctioned fight. So what's in it for me?" "I'll get you a new laptop." Momo offered the cost of a new top-of-the-line computer was pocket change to her. "Pass," Bakugo replied. "I don't need one." "A car? I can get you a car," she quickly amended. "Guys like cars, right?" "No." Bakugo smiled as he realized what would be the perfect thing for her to get him. "The book." "Book? What book?" Momo asked. "Don't play dumb. You're too smart for that." "His book," Bakugo pointed. "I can't, it's not mine," Momo rebuffed his choice. "And I can't let you do anything to it." "Fine," Bakugo rolled his eyes. "I promise not to destroy it, but I want to see it." "Only if I'm there," she stated. Growling for a moment, Bakugo swore before relenting. "Fine, I'll trash this clown. Then you let me see Dekazo's so important book." "Deal," she quickly agreed before he could change the terms. "You know," she called out as Bakugo stormed away. "If you just asked him, he'd probably show you himself." "Not a chance." The blonde waved off the suggestion. And here is the last of the quarterfinals, an explosion of power. Bakugo Katsuki, Present Mike said as the team took the stage. Aizawa spoke up to introduce his opponent. "And with the power to do what someone else does, Nito Monoma," he quickly said. "Gasp," Hisashi teased. "Was that sass I heard?" "Get on with it," Aizawa shouted. "This won't be much of a fair fight since I wasn't able to borrow someone else's power," Nito said as he watched Bakugo slowly walk up to him. "Wouldn't matter if you took All Might's quirk, I'd still pound you into the ground. But because I am a paragon of generosity and fairness, you can borrow mine." Katsuki grinned at the blonde as he extended his hand. Looking down at the appendage cautiously, the quirk copier gingerly reached out and then firmly grasped Bakugo's wrist. Smirking, he looked up. "Well then, I'll accept your hospitality," he cackled as he fired a blast point blank at his opponent. The crowd gasped at seeing Katsuki take a direct hit, but when the smoke cleared, the teen was just glaring. "You may get a quirk, and you may be able to use it, But you don't know the best way to use it, do you? Katsuki said darkly as he uppercut Nito before firing a blast. The force launched the other boy up before slamming back onto the ground. Ugh, Nito moaned as he rolled onto his stomach. See, I figure you have to have some brain cells, or else a quirk like yours would be wasted, Bakugo explained as he circled the other boy. Nito raised his hand and fired a blast, which did more to send him rolling along the arena. But you obviously don't grasp all the intricacies of each quirk, or else you'd know that you take as much as you give, he said as he slammed his hand down while firing small explosions. You need to brace yourself, or else you send yourself flying, Nito cried out when Bakugo struck him. Additionally, you seem to gain the secondary abilities, such as how you don't blow your fucking limbs off when you use my quirk, but you don't know how to take it. But it means that what I do next won't kill you. Bakugo dragged Nito into the center of the arena. Stop, Nito begged as he tried to crawl away. No, see, I don't like guys like you. You think just because you have a decent quirk, you can treat people like crap. Well, you're wrong. You have to be me. You have to have the best quirk, then you can treat the peons how they deserve. Katsuki shouted as he leveled a crater, making blast at his opponent. The force of the explosion rattled the windows of the arena. When the smoke cleared, Nito Monoma was clearly unconscious with Bakugo grinning ferally over his body. Katsuki is the winner. Someone get this boy to recovery, girl, Midnight shouted. She then glared down at the winner of that fight. You didn't have to be a dick. Hey, I only give what others can take, Katsuki shot back. If he thinks he can take my quirk, he better be able to take my quirk. The ash-blonde boy spat on the ground before walking away. Thank God Deku doesn't have his quirk. That'd be a nightmare to deal with, he muttered as he thought on the terror and Izuku with access to almost any quirk could cause. Author's notes, I'm not dead, I swear. So I know this took months and months and months to come out. And that's partly because of life, some writer's block, and I had a crap ton of other stories that I wanted to get out of my head. For those unaware, I have an AO3 account by the same name, which has some stories that are exclusive to that account. This account also has some exclusive stories as well. So keep an eye on both to see what I do and don't do for those who enjoy my writing. Some quick review. E.T. Reader 97. He can't use his magic to kill. So he could make a scarf that chokes somebody, but it would stop it making them pass out. So if Izuku kills, he can't use his tricks to do it. He'd have to do it by hand. So that would mess with his mind. Additionally, I constrain myself a bit by the rules of the universe. So far, no hero has had to kill a bad guy, besides Endeavor vaporizing a Noma's head, but they aren't exactly people. So will he? Maybe. Depends on how I see it going. Max L 1023. Well, psychological issues don't go away quickly, but Momo is improving. She'll just need a few nudges here and there along the way. Having the others around will help greatly. Zoom 99. Bakugo is an interesting character. Ultimately, I don't really like him. I feel in canon he gets too much of a free pass for the crap he pulled. His ego never gets checked, and even when something goes wrong, it's never portrayed as his fault. I feel like if he was dropped out of the canon story, not much would change other than letting some background characters get some spotlight, but him being there, I feel is forcing him into getting all of this attention, and so for me, he's complicated because sometimes I'll drop him out, others I'll change him for the better or worse, but there's an angle about his attitude that reflects greatly on their society that's really interesting, and his existence allows me to explore a lot of those ideas. Omnisense 95. Well, I have a couple I'm working on. Tsuyu and Todoroki is one. Jairu and Shinso seem to be hitting it off. Not sure what to do with Uraraka, but I need to give her a friend group before I do anything with her. I want to touch on the fan favorites before doing some more obscure people, though.